This is the Fan Morning Show with KB, JB, and Jeff.
Yeah, man, it's been a while since connected on one of those. Your eyes just kind of light up. It didn't even cross my mind to keep the football. Got back to the locker room at halftime, and Ant comes up to me and hands me the ball. I had no idea what he was doing. I was like, yeah, it's a nice football. And he just kept, he didn't say anything. And I was like, yeah, nice. And then he just handed it back to me like 3 times. He was like, all right. And then I realized what he was doing. But yeah, shout out to him. That meant a lot to me.
I thought it was a hell of a team effort by both sides of the football, really all 3 phases. I thought we played complementary football all the way through the game with those young guys going out there competing. Gave great effort. A lot of guys showed up. Obviously, D. Scott getting the pick 6 there to go up 10-0 was huge.
The chill is in the air as we inch closer to the start of the NFL season. Roster cuts coming tomorrow, due by 4 o'clock, 2 weeks from right now. We'll be recapping Colts and Dolphins week 1. I thought about it. James Boyd went there. Is it sweatpants season?
You know what? That's why
I thought about it.
That's when I walked in at 6:59 because when I walked out the house this morning, I was like, wait a sec, I need something, over my arms here, over my legs. And so made a quick U-turn. But yeah, it feels like it's gonna be fall pretty soon, and fall means football.
Man, it's humbling when that first chill of the year sends you back inside to change right there.
I had the voice of Mama Boyd in my head saying, put something on, and that's what happened.
I always laugh at 57 degrees in August versus 57 degrees in March. If it was March, hell, I'd be in a Speedo in the circle. But 57 degrees in August, we might as well wear a parka.
Exactly.
Here. Football weather alive and well. We got you covered on this Monday morning. Plenty to recap from what was another busy weekend in sports. Mark Dykton, as always, thank you for that intro. Good Monday morning to you.
Thank you. Good morning. Sorry.
I thought I was just going to ignore you for a second. Like, wow, what kind of beef we got going on?
I was thinking about how I was just here a few hours ago doing the Fever game. And so I was like, I should have just spent the night here. But I went home, got home at 11 o'clock, hit the alarm. I'm like, I'm going to be right back here in a matter of hours. Left my coffee here overnight. I'm like, no one else is going to be in here before I am. I was warming up when I get back.
Boy, the Fever, they're on a little thin ice right now.
Yeah, it got a bit tight last night. Not only did they lose to Minnesota for the second time in 2 games, but then Seattle and Golden State both won. And you look at the WNBA standings now, and the Fever are down in 8th. So that is not good. And now you have a huge one on Tuesday with Seattle coming to town. That could be postseason implications big time.
Yeah, I'm going to stretch it just past Seattle. The next 3 games are all against teams right there in the standings with them. And again, their regular season is just 2 weeks away from being over. So, yes, the Caitlin Clark injury situation remains, but with losing to the Lynx Friday and Sunday, it is getting tight in trying to claim a playoff spot. So we'll have Pat Leonard join us a little bit later in the show. Covers the Giants. We'll get into Daniel Jones and that experience out there. Nate Atkins from the Indianapolis Star. Nate said to JMV last week that this will be it for him on the old Colts beat, so we'll chat with him one final time. And again, we'll look back on what happened in Cincinnati on Saturday afternoon. You heard Riley Leonard's voice there in the intro. Very nice performance from the 6th-round pick out of Notre Dame. He uncorked one there to Laquan Treadwell.
QB1.
And he played very well in that game. Say that again, Mark.
QB1. People, trust me, if you were watching that game or you happen to check Twitter during that game, you're like, are we sure Daniel Jones is quarterback 1? Riley Leonard showing us some things here.
Yeah, they were at minimum wanting him to be QB2 because a lot of the comments I got was like, if you're giving up on Anthony, just go with Riley. And I'm like, wait a second, people. This is against 3rd and 4th stringers. But nevertheless, he did play very well on Saturday.
I selfishly want to see that happen just so we can see the true, Kevin Bowen Notre Dame fandom, see the sway that it has. And
he has a shirt on this morning. For
Riley
Leonard,
pendulum.
of course.
Yeah, of course.
1 week from today, we'll be recapping Notre Dame and Miami here on this very show.
And wearing a Tito's vodka hat, probably, because when you do watch Riley Leonard, you have to drink a little bit too, probably.
That is quite the combination.
I don't think there's anything more hyped than the final preseason game of 3rd stringers if said player plays well. James, I don't know how many Laquan Treadwell comments you got on Saturday as well. People demanding that he be on the football team. I don't think there's anything more hyped in the NFL than insert random player here with some sort of pedigree, plays well in the final preseason game, And yes, people clamoring for Riley Leonard to be moving up the depth chart, or people clamoring for Laquan Treadwell, which I guess we should probably get into at some point today.
Yeah, I'm looking right now at the text line, and someone said Treadwell is our 4th best receiver. He should not be cut. He is not their 4th best receiver.
There you go.
Pride of Cremoni. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, but he is. I think what I see whenever he's out there, especially in these moments, is the gap between like a fringe NFL player, which is what he is at this point in his career, versus guys who probably will not be NFL players. And he just beats them like a drum every preseason, it seems like. But credit to him. I mean, this is a 2016 first-round pick, dealt with some major injuries, I believe, in college and even early on in his NFL career. And 10 years in, he's still kicking. So respect to him.
Yeah, so lots of recap from Saturday in which the Colts, again, they're third stringers. And I guess they did play a couple frontline guys we can point out, but they played very, very well against Cincinnati. Shane Steichen will meet the media a little bit later today. Nothing on a practice front today or tomorrow. Again, everything kind of centered around roster cuts. Those are due 4 o'clock tomorrow. You've already started to see some teams around the league make their initial cuts. Typically, the Colts have, I think, always operated with Chris Ballard as a team that'll cut at about, 3:45 tomorrow. They will, and I assume, continue to take their time with that. So we'll nerd out over some of those roster cuts, differences from, maybe James, maybe myself.
I want to say we might have had like an identical one, Kevin. I really struggled to make some. I feel like this year wasn't that hard for me in a way.
Yeah, I saw Joel Erickson at quite a few differences, so I don't know. Maybe we can kind of go off of Joel's a little bit there and get into something. Because I do think, watching the game on Saturday, there were a couple of thoughts that I did have that kind of pushed back my own thoughts. I'm like, okay, maybe I should pause here or there. The injury situation is always one to keep an eye on, so we'll definitely hit that here on this Monday morning. I did want to make sure that we stuck this in, and maybe at some point we can expand a little bit on it, but it happened Friday, and I was stunned when I saw this headline, and then reading, the comments around it from the team as the announcement was made. It was quite the unusual press release. I think there's oftentimes, James, kind of a joke in our industry that occasionally you'll get the Friday news dump.
Yeah.
You send out the press release that probably doesn't have a lot of good things in it at about 4 o'clock on a Friday, and you hope that you've hit the happy hour crew and no one is paying attention to your story here. But the Pacers announced on Friday, I believe Friday afternoon, maybe it was late morning, a mutual parting of ways with, should I say top assistant? I don't know, maybe Lloyd Pierce at the top assistant. But Mike Weiner, assistant coach for the Pacers, who has been with Rick Carlisle for nearly 2 decades. And again, the mutual parting of ways about a month before the season is going to begin. Training camp is going to begin. There was a report a few weeks ago that Weiner had turned down the New York Knicks and Mike Brown's assistant opening there on that staff. So, James, I guess I'll start there. When I saw that headline, I was stunned. And then reading more of the, again, press release and seeing some comments from the Pacers, it was quite the unusual reaction to a story of that ilk.
Expand on that a bit, if you don't mind.
Well, the press release was very thorough and beyond complimentary of Mike Weiner. Rick Carlisle's quote sounded like a quote that, you might have for your children one day in describing them. And then you had Steven Simon going on Twitter calling Mike Weiner a rock star. So I guess I say all of this to say this does actually seem like something that is not a breaking up of sorts like we occasionally see in professional sports.
Not just lip service, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
This is not lip service. That is a good way to put it, James. This does seem like, first off, I hope everything is fine with Mike Weiner, family, all of that, because the timing is a little odd. The mutual parting of ways is odd in the sense of like, boy, I felt like it was going to be running back with this crew. And again, Rick Carlisle's quote was super long and detailed and complimentary and all of that. I don't know, maybe I'll wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden you'll see Mike Weiner's joined insert staff here, but I didn't get the vibe, I guess, from that via that press release.
Yeah, it is a bit surprising to me. I do wonder if we'll get one of those headlines, like you said, Kevin. But at the same time, we're a month out from the season. Like, how many teams are still retooling their coaching staff rosters? I know it happens a lot with players, but usually coaching staffs at this point in the offseason are pretty set. But, yeah, you go back to what Mike Weiner has done with Rick Carlisle in his career. Keep in mind, he was also an assistant on that 2011 Dallas Mavericks championship team with Rick in Dallas, with the Dirk Nowitzki-led team. And so they have known each other for quite some time, probably the better part of, I'd imagine, close to 2 decades, or it says here in the press release, 17-plus years. So, I do wish Mike the best. He was one of the nicest guys that I got to know on the Pacers, and whenever I did stop by, even after I'd stopped covering the team full-time, asked me how I was doing. Been a few times where I would see him and just see how his family was doing, how he was doing. And obviously, throughout these last few years, a lot of how you were doing was, the team's doing better. We're doing the right things. And so I do think that'll be a big loss for the Pacers. But obviously, just based off of what we see in this press release, if it is a mutually, agreed upon, kind of breakup, hopefully Mike gets what he wants out of this and he lands on his feet. And hopefully I can see him on the sideline or at least behind the bench or somewhere very, very soon.
Yeah, hope everything is good with Mike Weiner and his family. Again, plenty to recap from this weekend. An awesome move from Christian Rasmussen up there in Milwaukee yesterday in the IndyCar race. Him and Alex Palou going toe-to-toe there with about 15 laps to go. And Ed Carpenter Racing gets their first win in IndyCar in about 4 years. You had LeBron James, Caitlin Clark, among others, tweeting about Tommy Fleetwood. They call him Fairway Jesus, getting it done in the Tour Championship, his first win on the PGA Tour. And did I see Carson Wentz signing with the Minnesota Vikings?
You did,
Yes.
in fact, yes.
Look at this. Rounds at Holiday Farms be put on hold. Training sessions at Traders Point seemingly has turned into that. How about that life? You miss all of training camp, and you just walk into being the team's backup quarterback with 10 days to go till the season starts. That's good life. He didn't have to go through a single day of training camp.
It's a great life. I did also see my buddy Alec Lewis, who covers the Vikings for us at The Athletic, say, there's some overlap here. Carson Wentz and Ryan Kelly and Will Fry's 2021 Colts. And I was like, yeah, around here, they want to forget that. So don't reference that too often among those Vikings fans. They might go find the tape and be appalled.
So Carson Wentz or Daniel Jones, who would you rather have?
Oh, Daniel Jones. Very easily, actually. At least in these parts.
Carson Wentz had you, maybe a play away from the playoffs? Maybe 2 plays away from the playoffs?
Did you get in?
Well, are you going to get in with Daniel Jones?
That's the hope. I'm not saying I believe that, but hey, that is what the Colts believe that they can do.
Hopes and prayers.
That is James Boyd and Mark Dykton. I'm Kevin Bowe, and Jeff Rickard will be back with us coming up tomorrow. But we've got a lot to throw your way here to start off this week. Thank you for doing it here. It is a chilly, crispy start. Football weather feels like you're driving to a noon tailgate in Bloomington or West Lafayette.
That sounds amazing right now.
Right now, we will have a noon one in West Lafayette coming up on Saturday, 2:30 down in Bloomington. And again, Notre Dame, Miami, Sunday night from the Orange Bowl. Cannot wait to talk about it all. Thank you for starting off your week with us right here. It's the Fan Morning Show, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, let's begin with the preseason finale down in the Queen City. James Boyd, you were front and center for Riley Leonard, looking like the next Joe Montana. Your big takeaway from the Colts throttling the Cincinnati Bengals Saturday afternoon.
I thought he looked really good, and honestly, that's probably as good as he's looked throughout all of training camp in the preseason. So shout out to Riley Leonard.
There's no probably about it. That is easily the best he's looked, in my opinion.
Well, fair enough, yeah. I was trying to hedge you a little bit, but yes, Kevin Bowen is telling the truth there. He looked really good. I did think that there were a few other players that stood out to me. Isaiah Lamb was one of them. I have him missing my 53-man roster, but part of me is like, man, would he make it? Do I really need to keep 7 cornerbacks? We can get
He was
into
one I
all.
debated for sure.
Yeah, we can get into the projections and all of that, but overall, I just thought that, honestly, you got out of it without any major injuries, which is probably the biggest thing.
So mapping out the week, today should be relatively quiet. Some teams do start to make their roster cuts today. They are due by 4 o'clock Tuesday.
Yep.
Again, Chris Ballard is usually operated in a wait till very late, close to that deadline for it.
We'll hear from Shane Steichen later today on Zoom, I believe.
And then Wednesday, Ballard will talk. Always recaps roster cuts right after the waiver claim deadline. So if the Colts make a waiver claim or 2 or 3, we will get that info, and then
I have a feeling we will not be talking about roster cuts that much on Wednesday.
Yeah, probably a little bit of other pressing topics. One more practice Thursday, and then the NFL has mandated a really quiet Labor Day weekend. So nothing Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then it all begins coming up next week here for the 2025 season. All right, last night Mark Dykton was on the 1s and 2s. It was the Fever and the Lynx, and Friday it got away from him. Third quarter, I would say yesterday it got away from him. In that second quarter, the banged-up Fever bunch could not handle the return of Nafisa Collier. Understandable. She was outstanding. And the Lynx. So, as we said in the opening segment, guys, it is getting very dicey from a standings point of view. They are now 8th in the standings, and 8 teams make the playoffs. And this week, with Seattle, with the Sparks, and with the Valkyries, Golden State, those are the 3 teams all right there with them in the standings. And Seattle's home tomorrow, but then after that, they start a 4-game Western trip. So it's easily the most critical week of the Fever season right now.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm looking at, like you said, a huge matchup against Seattle tomorrow. But then you also have Los Angeles coming up. You got Golden State, 2 teams that have had your number earlier this year. You got Phoenix. And so it does not get easier. Not that any of these games really are this point in the season are pretty easy, because I think if you're on the other side of these games, if you're a Chicago, for example, on September 5th, you're probably thinking, well, we're out of the playoffs. I want to keep you out of it too. So these are some tough games coming up, and just hoping that, for the Fever's sake, you can hang on and just get into the playoffs. But it'll be tough to do so, especially if you continue to kind of, have those lulls like we saw early in the second quarter yesterday.
Home tomorrow
late
again.
Second quarter yesterday, I'm sorry.
Home tomorrow against the Storm, and then that road trip starts on Friday after that. Mark Dykton very happy about his Chicago Cubs. They sweep the LA Angels. Is it 5 back?
5, yeah, because the Brewers lost 2 of 3 to the Giants this weekend.
So 5 back as we inch closer to September. I did see that the MLB sent out this stat. We right now, with Cal Raleigh, Kyle Schwarber, and Shohei Ohtani, we have 3 different players that have already hit 45 homers before September. That is only the 3rd time in MLB history. You got to go back to the old steroid era, 98 and 2001. Both of those seasons, you had at least 3 reach that number. Mark, you got any rationale behind Big Dumper, Ohtani, and Schwarber, the legend, all at 45 homers?
Not really, no. I mean, Schwarber and Shohei just kind of do their thing. Cal Raleigh's kind of come out of nowhere, but, I mean, he's swings quite a big stick, so... Yeah, I don't know. It's fun to watch, though. I like watching all 3 of those guys in the batter's box. So good stuff there. And, yeah, Cal Raleigh had another amazing, just Sunday, just multiple bombs and all that stuff. So, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Victory Field's got the Indians back at home this week. TJ McConnell night coming up Wednesday night there. So it'll be Indians and Buffalo here. What a great week weather-wise for Victory Field.
And I think it's their second to last homestand of the season.
Right.
So, yeah, get out there if you haven't been out there yet.
I believe that is right. As we said, an unbelievable pass by Christian Rasmussen with about 15 laps to go yesterday in Milwaukee, and he gets it done. Talk about a name that not a lot of people would have had pegged as a winner in 2025. The first win for Ed Carpenter Racing since 2021. Mark, did we have Rasmussen on the show and we thought we were having Christian Lundgaard on the show at one point, or was it vice versa?
Boy, I don't remember.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was interesting. That's because I'm fielding like 20 emails from different IndyCar teams, and they just say Christian's good to go. And it's one of those things where it's like you don't really think about it. You're like, oh,
Two
yeah.
Christians, both from Denmark, and we screwed it up, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
And Ed Carpenter was
That's
dying laughing.
That's actually pretty funny.
Ed was listening, dying laughing amongst that. Whichever one it was, I probably should remember. They couldn't have handled it better there. So shout out to Rasmussen. He's a daredevil. He puts himself in some interesting situations a whole lot. That was quite the pass on the outside of Pelot. Yesterday afternoon, we mentioned Tommy Fleetwood getting it done in golf. Did you guys care at all? I mean, we did have some notable people in the sports world tweeting about it.
It made me turn it on. I thought it was, pretty cool. And honestly, one of those moments where, and if you're in his shoes, like, will you ever experience something like this again? I'm not saying he can't, but it's obviously a little different than having like your typical headliner win the event.
How did you feel about it?
I liked it. First off, and we're just texting a little bit with my brother-in-law. It seems like a really likable dude. 30 top fives in his career. This is his 164th career start on the PGA Tour, and near misses. I mean, near misses in Memphis just 2 weeks ago. And so I thought it was a pretty cool scene. By all accounts, people on tour, like players on tour, love him as well. So I enjoyed that. And shout out to the North Central Panthers as we recap Week 1 of high school football. Yes, Mark, your Brownsburg Bulldogs to get a nationally ranked win. But Colin Coffer and the Panthers of North Central, their first win since 2021. They had 32 straight losses. Coffer taking over there. LN grad, played at UIndy, and they get it done in Week 1. So I thought that was one of the cool stories there as we started up high school football.
I took a trip over to Warren Central for Center Grove Warren Central. Center Grove won, I believe, 24-6. It was lopsided, and I would just tell or advise the Warren Central team, drink some water. A lot of guys cramping up in the second half, and I was like, this is such a high school experience. And I know I say this because who hasn't been to a high school game where a bunch of kids are cramping up? And I was thinking, man, some coach somewhere is like, I told you all to drink water throughout third period, and you didn't do it, and now it's coming back to bite you a little bit. But overall, I think the score was maybe a little bit lopsided just because for most of the game, I want to say it was a 1 or 2 score game, and then it got lopsided or kind of blown open at the end. But I think both of those teams are going to be very good this year.
Well, there you go.
So shout out
Center
to
Grove's good every year, but nevertheless.
Shout out to Week 1 high school football. And as we said, to open up the show, Carson Wentz joining the Minnesota Vikings as their backup. Brandon here on Twitter. I thought about it over the weekend. I'd rather have Wentz the last 3 years than what we had. I get Wentz was a strange dude, but still. Do you think that's the majority of Colts fans, or is that the minority of Colts fans?
I think that's the minority. I think sometimes it's like a breakup when you leave somebody. You think about the highlights that you had with them. You don't think about why you left initially. And then if you get back in it, you realize, you know what? That's why this didn't work the first time.
Hindsight is always 20/20.
Exactly.
3 years of Carson Wentz or Matt Ryan, Anthony Richardson, and Gardner Minshew?
I saw Gardner Minshew in the Bears game. He was backing up Patrick Mahomes. I was like, my God. The ghost of Colts quarterback pass.
That's where Wentz was.
I know.
I was going to say, that is true. It's
Kansas
the pipeline, so should we expect
We are.
Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones to end up in Kansas City next year or
Probably,
something like that?
yeah. It's feeding them.
Now, when I say that out loud, Ryan, Richardson, Minshew, does that make you pause at all?
It does make me pause. But, okay, is the caveat that we know exactly what's going to happen with those guys, or are we just running it back and seeing what happens?
Yeah,
from the start?
Hindsight is super 20/20 with that.
Everybody wanted the Band-Aid pulled off with the veteran quarterback patch jobs, and then they got Anthony Richardson, and now everybody's like, well, this isn't working out so well, so I'd rather go back to that again.
The bet is still probably on Richardson being something and maybe not messing up his shoulder as a rookie. I don't know. You're giving me like pretty poor options here, Kevin, I'm going to say.
That's why I'm wearing the Cheetos hat here on this Monday morning, because stuff like that will make you want to throw a couple back here. All right, on the other side, what do you make of Riley Leonard? Anything else Saturday impact roster cuts? We'll hit on that here. Pat Leonard covers the Giants, going to join us coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. Some Daniel Jones memory lane, if you will, and then Nate Atkins from the Star at 9:30. Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, Mark Dykton here on a Monday. Thanks for starting your week with us.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I feel like the beat right there, Mark, of the re-entry is perfect for this weather outside.
Yeah. Some little autumn tunes.
Yeah,
going.
just a nice little chill here on this Monday morning. Certainly doesn't
Shout out Mac Miller, by the way.
feel like
It's a great song.
August 25th at all. I was half joking, half serious yet earlier in the show when I opened up the door this morning. It felt like I should be going to a college football tailgate. Just felt absolutely awesome outside. We will get things started. Did you guys binge any college football this weekend?
I did not. I feel like I lost one of my days, obviously, going out to Cincinnati on Saturday. And yesterday, I wasn't really checking for it too much, if there was any games on yesterday.
Sadly, was living and dying with Stanford football on Saturday
I
night.
did catch,
Did you have a
like,
bet or
the end of that. But probably just the Frank Reich or
I'm like,
Andrew Luck
can we get
connection.
Frank Reich an interim win out there on the islands? And no, not at all. Shout out to the Hawaii kicker. He was outstanding as they were able
Yeah.
to beat Stanford. Rowdy for Stanford football. Far cry from where it was with David Shaw or Jim Harbaugh. All
Or
right,
with Andrew Luck as quarterback,
Yeah.
well,
mind
certainly.
you.
Certainly
That helped
Jim
a lot.
Harbaugh running around, yeah.
Yeah.
A good Monday morning to you. Thank you for starting the week off with us. James, like you said, was in Cincinnati on Saturday. What'd you make of Riley Leonard? I know he's obviously a name that a lot of people around here remember from his collegiate days, and he really hasn't had. I think. I guess I should say this. I thought there maybe was a third quarterback competition entering camp between him and Jason Bean. Never really transpired in that way. To be fair, Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones got so many reps as they should have in that quarterback competition. But James, for a half out there, I mean, he uncorked one deep to Laquan Treadwell. That was a really nice performance from the 6th-round pick.
Well, as you know, Kevin, Riley Leonard was the first quarterback for the Colts to throw a touchdown pass in the preseason. So that right there means he's QB1 in the eyes of Mark Dykton and many others. So that's where I fall in the Riley Leonard debate. But no, I thought he had a solid half. I thought his personality afterwards was pretty heartwarming, just hearing him talk about.
He's got a great personality. Very, very easy to like.
Yeah, he was telling us how, Anthony Richardson had given him the football, and he was kind of confused as to what he was doing. But he said, hey, it's your first touchdown ball in the NFL. Gave it to his dad, whose birthday just happened to be on this past Saturday in Cincinnati. So that was really cool. But I thought he looked pretty poised out there. And I thought I got a kick out of him going back in there because Jason Bean got hurt briefly. And he said he had a handoff, and he obviously handed it off. But I told him, I said, did you try to get Shane to, let you uncork one more? And he was like, yeah, I did. I wanted to so bad. And obviously that did not happen. But for the progress that he's made throughout the preseason, I thought you could see some tangible improvement, which is all you really want from a guy who, again, was drafted in the 6th round.
Yeah, I mean, you're betting on the 190th pick with traits. And okay, what traits does he have? Well, first off, everyone saw us in college. Great runner. I mean, you even saw it on Saturday. He made several plays with his legs there. By all accounts, wonderful leader. I mean, the staff of Notre Dame and certainly Duke as well praised him many, many times for that aspect to it. I think there's a major desire to want to be something. For those unfamiliar with his story, I know Greg Rakestraw hit on this a little bit during the telecast, but lives very close to Phillip Rivers down in the Alabama area there, and is, I guess you would call Phillip maybe a mentor for him in this NFL journey. The biggest question is, can you develop from the pocket? And he was, I would say, pretty inaccurate at times in college, and even the first 2 preseason games. James, he hovered right around 50%, and but I thought, honestly, a compliment too to that offensive line. I mean, it's not always something that you say in 3rd preseason games. I thought they gave Leonard some moments too to flash the arm. Obviously, the Treadwell play is the big one.
Yeah, slow developing play, though, so you need time.
Which, again, in those games, typically it doesn't go very well with the patchwork offensive line in front of them. I have no real debate, and I didn't have a debate going into Saturday. In the Chris Ballard era with Sam Ehlinger mainly, they have often kept a third a third quarterback on their 53-man roster. I thought that previous with Leonard, I assume that just confirms it for you too. Did you have any debate about whether you try to sneak him to the practice squad?
No. I honestly think that if he goes to the practice squad, there's a decent chance that he might not be around. I don't know if you want to run that risk with someone you did draft and obviously want to keep around.
Which, given the injury histories of the 2 guys above him on the depth chart.
That too as well. But also, they've typically kept 3 quarterbacks in the past, which is why I roll with Riley Leonard as my QB3.
Laquan Treadwell is one of the more, I think, interesting third preseason game stories that you have out there. James, when you think of the third preseason game, you think of the undrafted kid. You think of Coleman Owen, number 3, the wideout who you saw flash again. I think he's a great practice squad candidate, undrafted out of Ohio. Those are the ones that you think of. Treadwell is a former first-round pick. James, he's got to be close to 30 if he's not 30.
He's turned 30 in June.
So he's 30 years old. You don't have many 30-year-old former first-round picks out there catching 6 balls for 100 and some yards in a preseason finale. But that is the case with Treadwell. I know I was one and you were one as well, getting several questions on what is the future for him. I consider him, again, a great practice squad candidate. Remember, the practice squad rules have changed in recent years. You now can have a couple veterans on your practice squad.
Yes.
It's not just young dudes. Do you think Treadwell pushes for anything more than a practice squad spot?
I don't think so, but I did have a few people who were reaching out to me, not like GMs or team people, but other reporters. For example, I know the 49ers might need some wide receiver help, depending on what things are going on over there. We had our reporter reach out to me, Matt Burrows, and he was like, hey, if they had to pick one guy who, is kind of a fringe guy, probably won't make the team, but could be a, contributor, on another team. I told him, hey, Laquan Treadwell, I do think could help in. If you're looking for somebody and you're in a bind for wide receivers, he's someone who could step in and I think certainly help your room. And then just getting to know him over the last couple of years, I've actually talked to Laquan a lot of Fridays when everyone's kind of just trying to get out of there. You make small talk with the guys, but with him, it's not really small talk. First start off, Mark, is just being the guy who's similar to where I'm from, Illinois, being a Crete-Monique guy, which is not too far from Romeoville. But at the same time, I did have multiple conversations with him about the journey and sticking with it. And, how do you stick with a dream that isn't what you envision? Because obviously for him, his entire life, he was a star. High school, college, first-round pick, and then you have some injuries, and then you get, humbled a bit, which I think he was always humble, but he was just saying, like, it changes your perspective. And now I think that when you see him go out there and perform, you hear his teammates talk about him. And even then, like, again, I talked to him, this is like, I don't know, week 12 of last season, and he's obviously not going to play on Sunday, but he's just telling me how, he loves the game. And I think you really realize that when you love it enough to continue to chase it, after you've made all the money, you could probably be set for life afterwards, and you're still, trying to prove yourself. Because he was like, I still want to go out there and show him I am this player that, got drafted in the first round years ago. So, again, respect to him.
He's caught one ball in the NFL the last 2 years. So even most recently, it's not like he's had
exactly. But he just keeps going at it, which I think if you got some kids out there who need to like look at people to emulate their character after,
right,
that's the guy.
And I think he's like important in a room for like A.D. Mitchell.
Oh, absolutely.
Again, guy coming in the NFL, hyped up career, has not gone anywhere near what you would think of a first-round wideout. And I guess this is where maybe we could get into, and I apologize. I know this isn't the cup of tea for everybody, but for those that do care about roster cuts coming up tomorrow at 4, James, one of the things like Treadwell, he technically falls into a guy that you will cut, not waive.
Right.
So if
because
you've been in the league,
had enough time in the league, right?
Right. So if you've been in the league for longer than 4 years, you are cut, and immediately you become a free agent. It's kind of like you've earned the right to then pick your destination. So take, for example, the 2 wideouts that shined on Saturday. Again, Treadwell will be cut in all likelihood, become a free agent. I think he could very well be back on the Colts practice squad.
And they would want that.
Coleman Owen, the undrafted kid out of Ohio, because he's been in the league for less than 4 years, you'll waive him. That puts him on the waiver market. And remember, waiver market goes back to the draft order from this past year. So the Colts had what? 14th pick is where they took Warren? Is that right? 13th pick?
14th?
So 14 in the waiver order. So if you go back to the draft order from April, that's how it will go. Coleman Owen will be on the waiver wire, and all 32 teams will get a chance to put a claim in for him. And if you are the team that is highest in the waiver order and you claim that guy and no one else does, then boom, you get that player and you have to make a corresponding roster move with that. Last year, for example, the Colts did it with Samuel Womack, a corner from the 49ers. So that's a little bit of an explanation on it's part of kind of the roster gymnastics that some teams will play this year. Like, theoretically, it's easier to make a promise to Laquan Treadwell than it is to Coleman Owen, if you hear me out on that.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Chris Lamons at corner, for example, now.
Another guy who will get cut instead of waived.
But I think the Colts could easily say, hey, man, just be patient. We'll get you back here within that first week.
Yep.
We just don't want to expose other guys to waivers right away, because that's the time where all these teams are out there. Remember, the Colts claimed 5 guys in Chris Ballard's first offseason. So at corner, for example, you have an undrafted kid in Jonathan Edwards. Again, you would have to expose him to waivers if you were to cut him. So, again, I apologize because I know it's a little bit technical, but sometimes when you see these veterans that get cut, some people are surprised by it, but it's kind of a handshake agreement that you occasionally see teams make with veterans, like, hey, we'll get you back here. We just need to play the roster game for a couple days before we really set our week 1 roster.
Yeah, I feel like this is when they go into the room, and how in the detective shows they have all like the wires and the like X marks the spot thing, and they're all like pulling their hair out trying to figure out what connects. That's probably what you do, I think, with the roster a little bit, to figure out what connects, what makes the most sense, and how can we hopefully get ideally everyone we want back in the next week or so. But it looks different, the pathway to getting there for each player.
Some people in the YouTube chat are asking about tight end. You and I were on the same page, right? We're keeping 4 and we're cutting Jelani Woods.
Yeah, and I did get a few comments on social media after Saturday's game, after my 53-man roster came out, and some people were pushing back on the Jelani Woods cut. They're like, hey, this guy is, a third-round pick, and he's got a lot of upside, and, he showed some stuff. But I truly believe, for those who watched every snap of the preseason, every snap of training camp, that the 4 guys ahead of him, Tyler Warren, Molly Cox, Will Mallory, and Drew Ogletree, were better than Jelani Woods. And I don't think that that's necessarily like a hot take. I think it's just a real take, and maybe something, a hard pill to swallow, because of where Jelani Woods was drafted.
Chris asked, does the waiver wire give the Titans the first pick of everyone's players, or do they just get to claim 1 player? They could claim 53.
Yeah.
If they'd like, they would then have to cut all 53 of their players. So you can claim as many. Again, the Colts claimed 5 in the first Chris Ballard year. Mark, I seem to recall a few years ago when your Bears changed GMs, they claimed a bunch at roster cuts. So you can claim as many as you would like. So yes, they get the first right of refusal, if you will, to every player cut, or waived, but you must make a corresponding roster move with that.
Yeah.
You also want to keep in mind, and I got some clarification on this from the league over the weekend. So you still have 2 players that, when roster cut down day comes tomorrow, officially at 4 p.m., 2 players you can designate to go to IR, but to return for the season. And Kevin, when I was doing my 53-man roster, I was talking about this with Joey Erickson of Indy Star. I wanted to try to predict who might be the IR candidates, but I didn't want to go that far, because I'm like, I don't want to be the guy who's like, oh, this guy, I'm going to guess that he goes on IR. That's not really the most professional thing, but it is something in the back of my mind, like, what does that look like tomorrow? How does that affect the other 53 guys that you do end up picking? Because in theory, let's say, Jalen Jones, who I believe is actually having made significant progress, but someone who had a hamstring injury, okay, you can designate him to return from IR, and so technically you would keep 55 players. It's just that when those 2 players are ready to come back and actually play, you got to cut another 2 to keep your 53-man roster at 53. So just keep that in mind. I know I'm getting in the weeds a little bit, but long story short, keep giving you the simplest version. There's probably going to be at least 2 players tomorrow who are not on the final roster who the Colts would designate to return from injury at some point in the season.
Yeah, I'm going to watch running back there. Injuries to Tyler Goodson, a little bit of Khalil Herbert.
Yes.
So that would be a position I'll watch. You brought up Jalen Jones at corner. That would be another one. And then I've got to go to linebacker with Jalen Carlisle. We have not seen him in a couple weeks. He's had a boot on that right ankle, 5th-round pick last year out of Missouri. The thought was he could start next to Zaire Franklin this year. That is not going to happen. And so that would be another area that I would watch. Do you guys think the heat is on? Like, are we?
I'm burning up in here.
Did
like,
we get
shirt's
the
about
chill?
to come off. I'm about to pop
I was
the
gonna
top.
say,
Mark, you mind cracking the door, bro? I'm like,
yeah.
I told you it was hot in here. I walked in yesterday to do the fever game. I'm like, who turned the heat on in here?
James is cutting weight for wrestling with how he's
I
dressed
know,
here.
and
on this
obviously
Monday
I'm
morning.
very skinny. I can't be cutting weight. I'm only cramping up like those Warren Central
Shit,
players, man.
You cut weight. All of a sudden, we're gonna have a feather over there leading us the rest of the show. One thing also, just keep.
God, it's like 15 degrees difference.
I know. Gosh, that feels great once you did that. Maybe trades. I think around the league we've already seen, 8-10 trades. The Colts have done this before, not a ton under Chris Ballard, but James, if you're deep with Laquan Treadwell at wideout, and all of a sudden you need a wideout, you brought the 49ers, I think, earlier, and I look at the 49ers roster and I like your corner depth, I might say, hey, we're going to cut this guy. You're going to cut that guy. Let's not expose them to waivers. Let's just trade, and that's something also to keep an eye on. So, again, I know a lot of this you really can get in the weeds on, but that is what life in the NFL is about here for the next 36 hours.
Yes, it is. And honestly, again, I feel like I get a kick out of trying to see how many players I get right on a 53-man roster. I don't know if I've ever gotten it 100% right, Kevin. Have you?
Oh, I don't. I think I'm usually like a 50 or 51. Yeah, no way I've ever gotten all 53.
I'm still chasing.
If I did, I think Maddie would probably leave me.
Who do you think has the best roster hit rate on the beat reporters?
I'd probably go Joel. I think Joel has gotten all 53 before, and he seems to make like the calculated guesses better than me. I feel like I'm always just like, there's no way they're going to move on from this guy, and then they do it. And it's like, well, and then Joel will tell me and school me, well, this is exactly why they did it, yada, yada, yada.
Gosh, Joel differed so much with me. That's probably not a good thing for me.
I know.
To be
Maybe
clear.
Chap as well, because he's just been around enough. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a little hard on myself. I think me and you might have been identical, Kevin. And I think me, you, and maybe Jake Arthur might have been identical. I was sitting next to him. I was doing mine. And maybe that's part of it. So I'm asking guys like, oh, what have you done? What have I done? Am I doing this right? Like, and so even just counting to 53, my biggest fear, Kevin, is one of these years I'd put it out there. I'm at 52, and I didn't count right, or I didn't add up things right. I'm at 54, and so the double counting and the making sure the calculator
Double,
is correct,
triple, quadruple check.
Yeah, because I'm like, there's nothing worse than somebody commenting like, there's 52 players here, James, and I'm like, yeah, my bad.
That's just James being a tough grader. Like, we didn't have 53 good enough players.
Right,
That's why.
Exactly. Yeah.
They didn't earn
one
it.
spot
James
open
is
for
sending a
Andrew Luck.
message to what he thinks of
There
the
you go.
roster. I got some uber Colts positivity to throw your way
I'll
coming
take
up here in a few. I'm afraid you might Matumbo it, but I'm still going to throw it your way.
Dang, am I that negative? Well, I might be, depending on what it is.
I don't know. I think you might poke some holes in it. So I will toss that your way coming up. Mark, are we believing in the Cubs? Is this happening? Is this a thing? Is this just a late off? Oh, boy.
Maybe.
Oh my
I mean,
goodness gracious!
Kyle
That
Tucker.
answer right there was no.
Well, no, I'm thinking
I
about
mean,
it
the
because
Reds are clinging to life support here. They look like my kid's trying to swim right now. I mean, there's no chance in the world that they're going to survive here. And your Cubs just have a sweep, and it's met with.
Well, it was also the Angels who are terrible. But Kyle Tucker has been in like a 7-week slump, legit like 7-week slump. He went yard a couple times in the series, started to, maybe heat up the bat a little bit. So if him and Pete Crow Armstrong and whatnot can get going, we could see. The Cubs have the easiest remaining schedule in MLB.
Do they
so
really?
Let's take advantage. Let's take advantage of this thing. Hopefully.
Indianapolis Indians back at home this week. Again, looks to be a great, great weather week. TJ McConnell night on Wednesday. What did we say? You have to slide into first base, every player for the Indians. What are other? You have to hype up after every out. You have to go like this to the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta pump up the crowd. Any other TJ McConnell isms that have to be there on Wednesday night?
I think you have to. Every outfielder has to run from the dugout to the outfield.
You go pole to pole before the inning starts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now,
he
TJ McConnell,
he better not dirt that first pitch either. He's got to. We need a clean
I feel like
strike.
he wouldn't do that.
Oh, no,
TJ strikes me as somebody who has a clue.
I feel like people half-ass the first pitch way too much.
I feel like they underestimate.
What do you mean? Like
they get nervous. Like remember Alec Pierce describing it earlier in the offseason? He did it at the Cubs game, and and Alec Pierce, by all accounts, a wonderful athlete outside of football.
Yeah,
you would think he would be able to chuck one in there pretty good. And he's like, yeah, I hopped it. I don't know. It was the mascot. The mascot had the big glove, and I got nervous.
Blame Clark the Cub. Clark the Cub did nothing wrong there.
Just gun 182 on the outer half. And
okay,
let's
but
call
you're
it a
asking
day.
him to do this with no warm up and just go and throw it.
And you're going on the mound. I feel like that
warm up underneath for all I care.
No one warms up for a first pitch.
Ask to go out to the bullpen.
No.
Can I have your bullpen catcher?
All right. I need like a poll.
Is David
on this,
Ross
Mark.
still around?
Should
Can
you
David
be
Ross
allowed
warm me
to
up?
warm up for your ceremonial first pitch?
I mean, I have heard people that do they practice in their yard ahead of time, like
That's
before
fine,
they go to
but
the
like
game.
warming up at the actual stadium.
No, you need to go to the Diamond. You need to go to Skiles Test or
Oh, my
Round Trip or
goodness.
Get
This
somewhere.
stretched out by the
blasphemy.
trainer.
Sneak onto one of the
No,
37,000
no.
fields at Grand Park and toe the rubber. Let's
No.
go.
Get the lat bands going.
Mark, if the Indianapolis Indians asked Mark Dykton to come out and
Oh,
throw
hell
the
yeah.
first pitch, there is no chance in hell you're hopping it. You are delivering a
There is a chance.
great one. No way.
With no warm up, just walk out there. When's the last time you threw a baseball that far in seriousness?
I'd be smoking the kids if I threw it as hard as I wanted to. No, that far? I don't know. It probably was back with Ashley or something back when we were dating or
And
something.
does the
See
So
what
it's
I
been-
mean? Like, it's
been
been
a
a
while.
while. Like,
I
you're
could still get it done,
would
though.
you
Indianapolis
not want
Indians,
to
I would
hop it or
be-
mess it up?
I
I'm
would be
telling the
honored.
catcher, you don't go in front of the plate. You go behind the plate. You are behind the plate, and I want the number one
We
finger.
know what? We can settle this. Indianapolis Indians, if you're listening, please let Kevin Bowen have a ceremonial first pitch one of these days. Please. I want to see this.
Tupperware night for T.J. McConnell, like he brings in the mom spaghetti he had before.
See, I
Game
want to
six.
do a first pitch, but I want to chase it with a beer bat first. So even if you dirt it,
Say no more.
you're getting the fans cheering.
Unbelievable.
Like, yes,
You
let's
want
go.
Macho Mike and YMCA before it? You
I'll
want
do
you
that
want,
in a-
you want to touch Rowdy's nose before you throw the first pitch?
Do a St. Elmo strip
We have
cocktail
Alex
concert
Laverne
contest
saying
right after.
that if you are trying to do TJ McConnell night, you have to touch the ground and then point up to the sky.
Yeah, he does do
take
that.
the field.
He does the soccer thing right before he enters a NBA game. All right, plenty to get to. 8:00 hour. I've got again some big positives to throw out on the Colts here in the month of August. We'll see how much holes get poked into them. A lot to recap from what was a busy sports weekend. We'll hit on that as well. Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, Mark Dykton right here on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Second and 10. Going to loft one downfield for Treadwell. He's got it. Wow. Inside the 20, 10, 5, and he walks into the end zone. Laquan Treadwell. Yes, sir. A bomb put right on the money by Riley Leonard.
Yeah, man, it's been a while since connected on one of those. Your eyes just kind of light up. It didn't even cross my mind to keep the football. Got back to the locker room at halftime, and Ant comes up to me and hands me the ball. I had no idea what he was doing. I was like, yeah, it's a nice football. And he just kept, he didn't say anything. And I was like, yeah, nice. And then he just handed it back to me like 3 times. He's like, all right. And then I realized what he was doing. But yeah, shout out to him. That meant a lot to me.
I thought it was a hell of a team effort by both sides of the football, really all 3 phases. I thought we played complementary football all the way through the game with those young guys going out there competing. Gave great effort. A lot of guys showed up. Obviously, D. Scott getting the pick 6 there to go up 10-0 was huge.
Colts with an absolute rout of the Cincinnati Bengals on Saturday afternoon. Mark Dykton, thank you for putting together some Riley Leonard and Shane Steichen.
Well, he was here all weekend. He had time.
I had nothing else to do. I'm gonna fix the heater next too. That's the next thing I'm doing.
Matt Taylor highlights sprinkled in. If you haven't been outside yet, there is a chill in the air. Certainly feels great though. But yeah,
you need to warm up. Come in the studio.
I was gonna say, ain't no chill up in here.
We got a sauna in this studio here. Hopefully, when Jeff returns tomorrow, he can let the powers that be know.
I do have some folks who are accusing him of messing with the thermostat on his way out.
Well, he's a big pants guy, so it would probably fit his weather, right? I've seen him rock pants at a golf outing when it's 100 degrees outside.
God, I was like, how are you not passing out right now?
I thought he was on the PGA Tour when I saw him rocking the pants.
Hey, he's a formal man.
Tommy Fleetwood, Jeff Rickard.
Dress
right
better,
there.
you two.
Jeff will be back tomorrow. Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, Mark Dykton.
You get to see these pale thighs, James.
We
deal with it.
Talked a lot about Riley Leonard and Laquan Treadwell in the 7 o'clock hour. You heard Shane Steichen mention the name of Daniel Scott. James, a pick 6 for the former 5th-round pick out of Cal. You mind sharing with our audience a little bit about the Daniel Scott story? Because I do think, given the safety position, he might be one play away. He's probably the 3rd safety, right?
I was going to say, you sound like Shane Steichen, but yes. He certainly is a lock to make the team in my eyes. I had him on my 53-man roster. And to give you all the backstory there, so Daniel Scott was a 5th-round pick, I believe, in 2023. In 2023, I believe he tore his ACL in the spring. Didn't even make it to like OTAs or through OTAs. Missed his entire rookie season. Comes back last year, tears his Achilles in OTAs in the preseason in the spring. Misses all of last season. So this is a guy who, again, 5th-round pick, hasn't played, even though he's going into his 3rd year with the Colts. And so he had the pick 6 on Saturday, 35-yard pick 6 in that rout of the Bengals. And obviously that moment had to be a huge milestone for him and just something to really feel good about. We had a chance to talk to him after the game. Shout out to the ever-amazing Lara Overton of the Colts sideline reporter. She showed Daniel Scott the replay of it because he hadn't seen it yet, which I thought was crazy. I'm like, you didn't see this play? First thing I'd be looking at when I went in the locker room. She showed it to him. You could tell just how much it meant to him, and I thought it was very fitting, him being as selfless as he is, from what I've heard from not only him but his teammates and his coaches, him saying at the end, the best part was celebrating with my brothers. And so respect to him for just the perseverance and finding a way through. And obviously, like you said, Kevin, there's going to be, I think, a key role for him with this team.
Probably a special teams role no matter what. From day one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I meant more so like just, hey, like you said, somebody gets banged up, he's your next guy in there.
Yeah, and right now, Nick Cross, we haven't seen him practice in probably a couple weeks now, so that'll be something just to keep an eye on. But, yeah, Scott, really nice pick 6 return on Saturday there in Cincinnati. Did you make anything out of, like, Matt Gonzalez, a starter, playing in that game? A.D. Mitchell playing in that game? There was a few more, not starters, but maybe a few more frontline guys than I thought.
Well,
and I don't hate on it. Let me be very clear. I thought Anthony Richardson should have played in the game.
Yeah, and that was sort of, and I hate to always make it about number 5, but I did think that, like, okay, if A.D. Mitchell can go out there, if Matt Gonzalez can go out there, and he is your starting right guard, and obviously he's one play away from being knocked out of the game or knocked out for the season, whatever the case may be, why wouldn't you just put Anthony Richardson out there as well? So I didn't understand that. But as far as those players go, to me, I look obviously at Matt Gonzalez as more of you need reps A.D. Mitchell, same thing. Juju Brents, I think just needs reps, but I mean, I don't know. Like, there is some toggling you could make with that cornerback room where he could be on the outside looking in, but I didn't think that anybody was like playing for their like roster life when you mentioned those players you just said.
Yeah, I want to be careful with how I word this because I know we talked a lot Friday, bless you, Mark, about Juju Brents and the fact that he was playing in the game. And if you're playing in the game, that's probably not a great sign for where you're at on the 53-man roster. I think you were on the same page, James. I don't think I view Juju Brents in that light. There is part of me that's like, man, if that man is cut tomorrow at 4:00, I'm gonna feel like an idiot because like there are some tea leaves. Yep. But I don't think it's there. Like, to me, this is not how I felt about Daniel Jones 1 week ago today. 1 week ago today, I felt okay, good. I think Daniel Jones is going to be named the starting quarterback. I'm not there with Juju Brents. There is a little part of me, like Jake just teased it, coming back there from the break. Jake just teased, is there a surprise cut? I know that's like the juicy topic we all want to talk about this time of year. We do it every Monday of roster cut week. But I really don't think Juju is that because also at corner, as you've brought up, James, Jalen Jones right now is dealing with an injury that I think is further behind. Juju obviously played on Sunday or Saturday. Jalen Jones is not. So I don't think he's one of those names. But, part of me is like, well, Kevin, read some tea leaves here. It's a new defensive coordinator. No one's safe, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not going to go down that path just yet.
That's kind of where I'm at. But on the flip side, I thought that there were some players that showed some stuff. And I think, again, Isaiah Land is the one where I'm like, man, is he on this roster? Is he not? Because I went more towards the defensive tackles, at least in some of my, like, fringe picks, because I thought they just need a little more depth there. But, again, could he make it over Adi Tamawa? I don't know. Like, Adi Tamawa has been a special teams guy, so – again, this is where I'm just grateful not to be in the position of having to pick 53 players because it's really hard. And as we've said, the 53 you pick to start off the season, those 53 will not necessarily be the same in like a week anyway.
Oh, hell no.
Because of the toggling. So it's like I do all this work to try to get my guesses right, and then it doesn't matter because they change it in a day or two anyway. But that's kind of where I stand.
Trevin says, I think Shane didn't want to play Anthony because he didn't want him to dominate, which would then lead to Shane having to hear it from everyone. So
couldn't you just counter if you're Shane and say, well, it was against 3s and 4s?
Hear me out here. Can you imagine if Shane...
the open beef that Mark just started right there with that scenario?
Can you imagine if Anthony Richardson had the exact game that Riley Leonard had on Saturday? I mean,
boy. Okay, now I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You got people right now wanting Riley Leonard to be QB1. Can you imagine if that was Richardson?
Lord.
Yeah.
This is like Shedeur Sanders. And I'm joking. I do not believe anything that's really going on in Cleveland right now as far as the quarterback conversation goes. But I do think the narrative and the conversation will be crazy. We would open the show with that.
Can I throw some uber positive Colts thoughts your way?
Feel free. And I'm getting my Matumbo finger wag ready.
I know. I'm afraid here. All right. Right now, in the month of August, the Colts finished the preseason as the NFL's top pass defense. They finished the preseason as the 4th best offense in the entire NFL. First in rushing yards per attempt. League leaders, the Indianapolis Colts, in the month of August. How about that? Hang a banner inside of Lucas Oil Stadium for week 1. Best pass defense in the league. Best rushing offense in the league. 4th total offense.
Lollipops and rainbows, everything that's wonderful is what I feel.
Mr. Positivity, Kevin Bowen here.
Are you Matumboing it? Are you poking holes in it? Are you going to agree and say,
this is something? A lot of this happened against the lowly Bengals who never play defense ever.
Well, they're not just all the Bengals.
What do you mean, all the Bengals? All the Bengals play no defense.
Maybe a little bit of the Packers. Top pass defense.
They put 41 up against the...
That was Malik Willis in the past. I mean, I don't even know who the quarterback was for the Ravens when the Colts
You're trying
played.
to be positive, Kevin. You brought up a loss. No.
So you are ripping up my positivity, throwing it right back in my face.
I'm saying, can we get a little bit of some guardrails on this right now? Because
the best pass defense in the NFL. When's the last time the Colts win a month of playing football? I don't care what the month is. The month could be freaking March or April. And they were the best pass defense with all those injuries. Think about how many secondary injuries that there were. A slew of them. And yet they were the stickiest pass defense in the entire NFL.
I think I could probably give you some flowers for the secondary, but once you say like anything offensively, they got boosted by a team that is allergic to playing
Ulysses
defense.
Bentley, the Force family.
Shout out to the Bentleys.
And was it Nate Noel? Is that the other runner that was kind of taking off there in the fourth quarter?
All I know is I talked to a Bentley after the game, and it actually spoke back to me. It was quite intriguing. I did ask him.
You
about
are
his
out
name.
of my price range.
Yeah, I did ask him. I said, are you okay with my phrase of driving the Bentley? And he was like, well, you got a lot of nicknames coming up. He did say that.
Did Matt Taylor go there, Mark? Did you listen to the highlights?
He didn't. I heard it back. He did not go there. I wanted him to so bad. Driving the Bentley, I think, is a fine way to describe that young man. But I talked to him briefly. He did mention that, it is a little weird because he's been a good player all of his life, obviously, and not knowing what's next, not knowing if he'll be with the Colts, but he did mention that he's thankful that the Colts gave him a chance to go out there and play and kind of show some stuff, find some pay dirt, and obviously, hopefully, get picked up by somebody else. If not, stand with the Colts.
Scrooge Boyd is being mentioned here in the YouTube chat to describe James Boyd reacting to my positivity here from the Colts.
Well, I am a bit of a Scrooge now. You're talking to somebody who didn't believe in Santa ever.
Jeez, okay.
So,
James, it's
Lord,
8:13 in the morning, man.
I'm just saying.
We got people driving to school right now.
The people driving are not
big fan
children.
of Santa. I'm a
They're
big
in the
fan
car.
of Santa.
Okay.
Chris Kringle, we greatly await you on December 25th.
Chris Kringle
here.
he ain't exist in my household.
Unbelievable.
Pops went to work.
Oh, my God. Can you turn off his mic, Mark?
Yeah, I mean.
We need Jeff back more than ever.
Good
Can
Lord.
James
Wait,
go to
hold
Charlotte
on.
for a week?
Hold on, let's get back on the good vibes.
Dear Lord.
Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Everything that's wonderful is what I feel.
Well, we just lost a third of our listening audience with kids in the car here.
I'm
now
sorry.
driving in
Somebody
there.
just dropped 4-letter words back to
Unbelievable.
back to back. Good grief.
So no one wants any of my positive nature for the Colts? You don't. I genuinely think this. I just watched the Colts play 3 preseason games. I just watched the Colts, 12, 13 training camp practices. I was genuinely impressed by the pass defense. I thought the coverage was oftentimes sticky, tight windows. I didn't see a lot of free access throws. I didn't see a lot of, here you go, there's 10 yards. For the most part, I thought they did a really nice job in playing tighter coverage. So, I don't know. Maybe it means absolutely nothing. Didn't the Lions go undefeated in the preseason the year they went 0-16?
Yeah, I bought my buddy who is a Lions fan a T-shirt that said preseason champs. He still wears it proudly to this day.
Oh, my goodness.
That's epic.
We also have Sean in the YouTube chat who said, my kids are crying now hearing Santa isn't real. Thanks, James. Sorry.
Unfreaking believable.
Gotta believe.
Well, you got a few months to, lie to them some more and, reverse it. So you got time.
Word on the street is Matt Taylor did drop a Bentley reference. Did you listen to both touchdowns, Mark?
No. I can find it, though.
Oh, okay.
Find that
I'll
for us.
listen to the first one.
Does he make the team, James? Ulysses Bentley the fourth? I think he's a really tough one.
I had him on the outside looking in.
He's one of those ones where if they put Tyler Goodson on IR tomorrow to return later, do you put Bentley on the team right now for X amount of weeks?
I do think that's a possibility. I think he actually showed some stuff. And also, what would that look like if you were to, for example, look at a guy like Khalil Herbert and he's going to miss some time with, I believe it was a hamstring or a groin. It was something soft tissue.
He got back to practice last week very lately, though.
Yeah. So I just wonder how that could all shake out. But, again, I thought for a guy like him, he got an opportunity to show some stuff, and at least you leave with some positivity, Kevin, and the Colts coaching staff mind.
Man, breaking the Colts positivity like it's nothing and then just ripping hearts out of our young children here. Nothing to said. James Boyd is going the birth control route like those comments there.
That is probably, yeah, that's the most like non-parenting thing I've done in quite some time.
Leonard out of the gun. Bentley to his right as the back. They give it to Bentley, and he's in there. Touchdown, Ulysses Bentley. Driving that Bentley across the goal line. Yes, sir. And the Colts now lead it 16-7.
Pull that back a few, Mark.
I missed
Play
that.
that one more time. I like
Leonard
that.
out of the gun. Bentley to his right as the back. They give it to Bentley, and he's in there. Touchdown, Ulysses Bentley. Driving that Bentley across the goal line. Yes, sir. And the Colts now lead it 16-7.
God bless Matt Taylor. Wonderful. Wonderful. In the last hour of preseason football, you've got to come up with some energy, and he did.
I'm just picturing Carly Ursay-Gordon. Remember she drove the Bentley for a few weeks last year, I want to say. Her car might have been in the shop. I don't know what the scenario was there, but I saw Bentley parked outside of the Colts, and now we have two of them with this franchise. There you go.
Again, roster cuts coming up 4 o'clock tomorrow. We'll continue to get into some of the weeds with that stuff. It was a busy sports weekend. Let's recap it here on the Morning Checkdown.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
So again, 4 o'clock tomorrow, 90 becomes 53. You will see cuts trickle out. I think you've already seen some here this weekend. The Colts typically have been a team that waits all the way up until the deadline. And we'll see. Any last-minute trades? That is something you typically see around the NFL this time of year. Hey, we're going to cut this guy. You're going to cut that guy. Let's just trade them because we need some roster depth there. So something to watch as we get closer to 4 o'clock coming up tomorrow. It was a late night in this studio for Mark Dykton. He was producing Fever and Lynx. And Mark, that one got away from the Fever there in the second quarter. And Nafisa Collier, very good at basketball, her return to the lineup. She looked like an MVP, and now, oh boy, Fever a bit on thin ice when it comes to their playoff standings. They are 8th right now.
Started out well for the Fever, too. They led at the end of the first quarter, and then all of a sudden,
first quarter.
Minnesota went off on like a 16-0 run, and that was a wrap after that. The Fever had no answers once that happened.
So they've got the Storm at home tomorrow. That would be Seattle. And then they head out west, and that western trip begins with the LA Sparks and the Golden State Valkyries. Right now, I said the Fever are in 8th. The Storm they play tomorrow, 6th, a half game above them. The Valkyries, who they play this weekend, tied right now. They have the tiebreaker, so they're technically 7th. And the Sparks, who the Fever play on Friday, they are 1 game back in 9th. So you have 6 through 9 separated by 1.5 games, and the Fever play all 3 of those teams in the next handful of days. So it is an absolutely massive week for the Caitlin Clark-less Fever. Did I see she was doing like a walkthrough situation here? I don't know if I'm ready to make a lot of it. Are you ready to make something of her return?
No, I think at this point, when you tell me she's going to be available to play, that's when I'll believe that she's available to play. Speaking of returns, what about Nafisa Collier coming back and dropping 32 points and looking like she never missed any time? How about that for a return? So, obviously, for the Fever's purposes, they hope that they can get the same from their star.
Very good at basketball. Nafisa Collier. All right, Major League Baseball. Right now, the Cubs, they sweep the Angels. They have created hope in some people's minds, but honestly, they sound like James Boyd with Christmas in Mark Dykton's mind.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pacing myself a little bit because it could have handled business a little better against Milwaukee, but you sweep the Angels, that's good. And the fact that the Brewers lost 2 out of 3 to the Giants, that is also good. So, big series upcoming for the Cubs and the Brewers.
I'm laughing at this comment. Ebenezer Boyd is hilarious.
God, that's a great line. Can I call you Eb? Eb Boyd.
Eb Boyd, that's
is
good stuff.
outstanding. Yeah.
I deserve that one. That was funny.
Shout out to Christian Rasmussen.
Boyd Humbug is my favorite.
Hilarious.
Oh, that's even better.
Oh, man.
That's excellent there. Christian Rasmussen, quite the pass on the outside of Alex Pillow there with about 15 to go in Milwaukee yesterday. The oval up there. You don't see Alex Pillow as a sitting duck very often, but Rasmussen, of all people, made him look like that in passing him for his first career win, the first win for Ed Carpenter Racing since 2021. Did I see Nathan Brown had a report in the Indy Star earlier today that Red Bull is pursuing Alex Pillow for their F1 spot, and is that next to Max Verstappen then? Would that be quite the headline?
That would be, I think.
Talk about something IndyCar does not need at all. Oh, boy. It doesn't sound good at all. Season finale in Nashville coming up on Sunday, so we'll continue to monitor. I feel like every year we get the rumors of, Pato Ward F1, Colton Herta at F1. I don't know, maybe Pelot's dominance in IndyCar and the Indy 500 win has him thinking otherwise. Shout out to Fairway Jesus. Tommy Fleetwood gets it done yesterday in the Tour Championship. That is a $10 million win. By all accounts, pretty cool story there. And I think PGA Tour players have always offered plenty of praise for their colleague. Tommy Fleetwood had not won yet on the PGA Tour, 164 career starts, 30 top fives there. You had Caitlin Clark tweeting twice about Tommy Fleetwood and getting it done on Sunday. You can see where her golf passion lies. And other NFL news, Aiden O'Connell, the Purdue quarterback, a wrist fracture. I believe he was in line to be or compete for the Geno Smith backup job there with the Raiders. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. And Carson Wentz, the backup quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. Carson Wentz just executed a wonderful last month. The man played golf at Holiday Farms seemingly every day. He threw to some receivers occasionally at Traders Point, and he now becomes a backup quarterback while missing an entire training camp. Has Carson Wentz earned that status?
I mean, you earn what people are willing to give you, so yeah, I guess so. And in the minds of many people, he probably is a high-end backup. Spot start?
But he's earned it like he doesn't need to show up to training camp? I mean, that's like quite the praise.
So am I allowed to, not hate at this moment in time? I've done enough hating this morning.
Well,
so I'll let you
go
have that
ahead.
one.
Go ahead, Ebby Boyd. Boyd Humbug. That is outstanding.
That is great. Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't think Carson Wentz. I don't know. Maybe his career has earned that. So there you go. Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, Ryan Grigson, Carson Wentz all together with the Minnesota Vikings, the Colts of the NFC North.
Aaron Rodgers and Carson Wentz both get to skip team activities and just get on the roster. That's
and to be fair, I think Aaron Rodgers' resume is slightly different than old Carson Wentz.
Apparently not.
That's neither here nor there. Some surprising news Friday that was sent out. So we'll get the thoughts on that. I thought it was a very interesting release of the news and comments regarding the Indiana Pacers. We'll throw that coming up your way and continue the conversation. It is us three, Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, Mark Dykton. Thank you for beginning your week with us right here on the Fan Morning Show, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
as cuddly as a cactus, you're as charming as an ear. Mr. Grinch.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
With the greasy black peel.
Well, the reentry should tell you everything you need to know about where James Boyd was about 20 minutes ago.
I was busily trying to figure out, okay, how do I get a Santa costume and how do I ruin more children's lives?
Don't think we'll go down that path here again with Eb Boyd.
Oh yeah, he's totally real and
Boyd
spreading
Humbug.
cheer and everything else.
Save our Chris Kringle. What are we, 5 months away from Kringle?
Yeah,
4
I was
months
reading
away?
the chat. Someone was telling me that I need to, perhaps wear a Santa suit come Christmas week show. So be on the lookout for that. I might have to play ball there.
That's the voice of James Boyd. I'm Kevin Bowen. Mark Dykton on the ones and twos.
Kevin be a reindeer. Have him put the reindeer costume on.
Put the reindeer costume
Sure.
on.
Rudolph.
What's the Grinch's dog's name? Max? Be Max. You have a son named Max. Be the dog Max.
That was the biggest reason why I didn't want us to name Max. Every dog I meet is Max. It's got to be the most popular human dog name, right?
I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, that is a dog name.
We're literally having lunch yesterday. Dog, the guy and his dog shows up. Next thing you know, he's telling him, Max, sit. It literally sounds like me yelling at my Max.
Yeah, we were at Disney World one time. We were getting like our dog, our dog that we had at the time, like a dog collar thing, and his name is Parker. And like this kid came up and he's like, "Oh, that's my name." I'm like, well, that's our dog's name too. And it actually hit me. And she's like, "That was so rude." I'm like, "I'm telling the truth. That's our dog's name."
So that was like me a few minutes ago when I was ruining other childhood.
I was like, how
You
was
ruined
that
his
rude?
Childhood.
You guys, you
See, how was I saying anything rude?
College football upon us. It'll be noon from West Lafayette coming up here on Saturday. That is Ball State taking on Purdue. That's Mike Uremovich, correct? The old Butler coach is now the Ball State coach. 17.5-point favorite, the Boilers, here over Ball State. Indiana, Old Dominion, year 2 of the Kurt Signetti era, 22.5 points. That doesn't seem like... The fact that IU is only favored by 5 more points than Purdue doesn't seem to add up. Is Ball State that bad? Is Old Dominion that good?
I mean, you're asking the wrong person here. Possibly.
I think I'm just talking out loud.
I
to
was
be
going
honest
to
with
say,
you.
I hope you aren't asking for real analysis here.
Maybe that Old Dominion matchup's a bit tougher than we thought. Maybe that's what happened.
Give some credit where credit
Maybe
is
those
supposed to be due.
non-cons aren't as soft as everybody
You
thought.
schedule Scrooge.
I am surprised Notre Dame is favored on the road at Miami. First time starting quarterback. Miami's quarterback, for those unfamiliar, that's Carson Beck, the Georgia transfer.
Carson talking today's show.
Mm-hmm.
He is the starter for the Hurricanes. Notre Dame is a 2.5-point favorite.
Okay, so can you give me the Kevin Bowen setup? Nighttime kickoff, diehard fan. What does the experience look like for you? Are you a stand-up in front of the TV the entire time guy? Are you sitting down?
Yeah, I stand up for every third down easily. And
Okay.
I'd say I probably stand up for, I don't know, maybe 50% of the other plays. Sometimes you just feel like it's a big play, even though it's not a third down. Yeah, it's embarrassing. It's pathetic to watch.
I feel like Kevin's got like the fake coach headset on too. He's like, "Come on, boys." Hands on the knees.
Super
bent
unhealthy.
over.
So when a play works, is that just like yell, fist bump? What are we doing? Are you grabbing Max and saying, you know what, son, we're winning it all again this year?
I like to think I can be cognizant of, like, are they in bed? Are they not in bed?
Okay, fair.
But, I mean, I definitely have some aggressive grunts or some,
Aggressive grunts.
you know how kind of like Jeff sounds when he comes back from break occasionally.
Whoa!
Yeah, enough to get my emotion out, but, enough to, walk the fine. Sometimes I turn up their sound machines a little bit louder, when the
Okay.
Irish are playing. So
I'm trying to think, like, have you ever been in a moment where you wanted to scream? I remember when Damian Lillard hit like that 40-foot three-pointer to beat OKC to end their season, 50-point game. I had just come back from, I don't know, covering some high school game or something way back when I lived at home with my parents. They were all asleep, and I wanted to scream so bad, but I couldn't.
Well, this probably isn't great for me to say, but James, I mean, I did go to the national title game via a media credential, so I had to behave.
That must have been like a bit of like heaven, but also purgatory. My goodness.
And like Notre Dame's making this huge comeback.
Yeah, I mean, that was a game.
And the place is going nuts, and I'm just like sitting on my hands. I know. That might have been the hardest 3 hours of my life.
I remember I screamed out loud in the middle of the night because my buddy and I back in like high school were playing like college football 2002, and he got a walk-off touchdown at me, and I screamed no at the top of my lungs, not realizing it was like 1 in the morning. My dad came to us like, I got work in the morning. I'm like, sorry, I just got bombed by Chris Wenke.
Peter Warwick just got behind my defense.
I'm trying to think
here.
of the last time I genuinely screamed. It might have been a couple of times in my apartment during the Pacers run when I'm not in the press box. So like that Knicks shot, the Knicks shot, when that bounced up and went in, I remember thinking, and it wasn't even like a cheering. It was just like I just screamed like, "Oh my God!"
I think I told you this. Maddie would watch the games upstairs, the endings of the games, and that TV is like probably a second and a half ahead of our living room TV.
Oh.
And when he hit the shot against the Thunder, she screamed, and I think he was dribbling the ball across half court.
Oh,
and so I literally,
oh my goodness.
And so now I'm just watching it like, how did he do it again? Like, I remember that thought going through my head. Like, how did he do it again? And, that one was, just a little, 18-foot pull-up jumper there.
Yeah.
With, what's his name, Cason Wallace guarding him. We did get this question in the chat here. I think it was Cody sent this in. We're talking a lot about roster cuts. Again, the Colts will cut. NFL deadline is 4 o'clock tomorrow. Jelani Woods is always a popular name. He's a former third-round pick, dazzled as a rookie, season-ending injuries each of the last 2 years. The Colts have seen out his rookie contract now. This is the final year on his rookie deal. I have Jelani Woods just outside of the team. I have him on the practice squad, James. I think you're in the same boat. I think it's really difficult to find 5 tight ends on a 53-man roster and give them a role. Like, Woods has never been a special teams guy, I guess, just to point that out there as well. So I view Tyler Warren, Mo Alley-Cox, Drew Ogletree, and Will Mallory as the 4 tight ends. Cody was asking us if it's anything work ethic-wise with Jelani Woods that's contributing to that. Yes, I would say no, but feel free to expand.
I don't think so. I think it's literally just the injuries, obviously, the last couple of years that have kept him out. But then on top of that, the other guys have just shown more, I think, throughout training camp. That's just as simple as I can put it. I know, again, I had some people who pushed back on that on social media, talked about it in the first hour of today's show. But to me, I think, obviously, Tyler Warren's a lock. Mo Alley-Cox, I think, is a lock. It comes down to Will Mallory, Drew Ogletree, or Jelani Woods, which 2 of those 3. And I think Will and Drew have shown more consistently throughout training camp in the preseason than Jelani Woods.
And I think they like Ogletree as a blocker
as well. And that's something that Jelani Woods does not do great, in my opinion, even though he is a bigger bodied, I think 6'7" tight end.
I thought I had a sneeze coming. I looked up at the sky, but I didn't sneeze. Is that a myth looking up?
What other myths are out there?
To get you to sneeze? Well,
I always feel like looking at the sun lights.
You
just
tried
to
throw quite the myth at the whole audience about 20
you guys
minutes
tell
ago,
me it wasn't
man.
a myth, and
Unbelievable.
I'm just, you know what?
Gosh. Just pray, Matt, you didn't have the kids in the car driving them to school at that hour.
Why are they believing strangers on the radio? Raise your kids better. Everyone listening.
Oh, you're Uncle Boyd in the house now, Uncle James.
Well, fair enough. This is true. Me and Nora are kind of locked in after our little drawing expertise over there on the whiteboard one day.
Somebody wiped it off. I was so mad.
We did mention this earlier, but I want to get back to it here for just a second. The Pacers sent out this news release on Friday, and James, I was surprised, A, at the headline, and then B, I read the press release, and it was one of the more thorough, complimentary press releases you'll ever see. Hell, the quote praising this individual was about 3 times the quote praising Miles Turner upon his exit. A mutual parting of ways between Mike Weiner and the Indiana Pacers. For those unfamiliar, Weiner, probably you would call him the top assistant for Rick Carlisle. I think anytime you watch Pacer games, Weiner looks like me on third down of Notre Dame games. He's always up, and Rick has had him alongside him really since his Dallas days. Rick had a super long quote. He started off with been a friend and a trusted colleague and loyal colleague for 17 plus years. Steven Simon, future owner of the Pacers, called him on Twitter a rock star of the highest order. So I don't know, James, in our industry, you oftentimes get press releases about firings, mutual parting of ways, like this language was, and it oftentimes doesn't have a lot of detail, doesn't offer much color. There's not a lot of praise in it. This was the exact opposite. So, when you hear the headline, you think to yourself, oh, wow, could he be taking a job elsewhere? I don't necessarily read that into it, and I will say I just hope everything's good with Mike Weiner. and his family.
Absolutely.
Because timing is it's just a month before training camp starting here, and I think he's been pretty vague with people within the building too on like why he's leaving. So yeah, I just hope everything's good with him. Because clearly, he helped Rick Carlisle out a bunch over the last few years.
Yeah, I would just piggyback off those comments. You kind of gave me a different perspective there, Kevin. Like, yeah, it could be something in his personal life, but regardless of what it is, we ultimately wish him the best. I think he's meant a lot to this franchise. It meant a lot to Rick Carlisle, as we saw in that release. And I think if and when he wants to coach again, he will have that opportunity waiting on him.
There's a report a few weeks ago that he had turned down the Knicks and Mike Brown
to be their top assistant.
Right. And so, I think I said this when Rick signed his extension last week. I was like, man, it's pretty rare to see the coaching staff intact again.
Yeah.
And sure enough, this news item.
So then, in a way, that does open up a spot for the Pacers. So I would assume in due time, they will fill that gap with someone they believe can help them go through, which will be a very unique season for the Pacers, where the expectations are high, but they're not what they were had Halliburton been healthy. Also, shout out to Tyrese having his camp over the weekend over in Westfield, I believe, over at the Pacers Athletic and Event Center. We saw him walking around in the boot, in the ref shirt. He was saying there's no timeline for his return, won't play this upcoming season, but he has been inspired by Isaiah Jackson and James Wiseman coming back from their Achilles tears.
I'm curious, do you bump Jim Boylan to the front of the bench? So Jenny Busick, Lloyd Pierce, Jim Boylan, who has been a NBA head coach, and I think Rick obviously brought him on for a reason.
Yeah.
A couple other people they could go with internally, but about a month away, probably from training camp.
That's so crazy to say.
Here for the Pacers, I know. It is crazy. Plenty of Colts conversation. We'll go to New York coming up 9 o'clock hour. Pat Leonard covers the Giants. What did he witness in the Daniel Jones time there? How do we look at that from a Colts perspective? And Nate Atkins covers the Colts for the Star, but that is not how I will introduce him probably after, I don't know, today. I think he tweeted out last night, and this will be his last radio interview as a member of the Colts beat. So, Nate, moving on, but I think good things are in order for him. Coming up on the other side, where are the Colts at from a roster cut standpoint? What are we watching for over the next 24 hours? We'll hit that next here. Fan Morning Show.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You know, honestly, when I opened up the door this morning, my first thought was, is college game day today? Is it 11:55 a.m. and I'm huddled around the TV?
That does bring great vibes, man.
That weather to me just screamed college football. It had James Boyd going back in the house to put on one more layer, very smartly. I semi-regretted it. But more than anything, college football's here. And that means my Saturday tradition is back.
Yeah, and that tradition would be neglecting our responsibilities to watch football, right? Because that's what I try to do. I mean, obviously a little easier for me being the single guy with no kids. But, yeah, as far as other things, I'm like, I'll get up and I'll clean. I'll do all the things. But once college game day gets there, I'm hoping that I can sit down and do nothing. Even with some of my schedule for flights, leaving to go to different cities on Saturday this upcoming season, I'm trying to get there relatively early because I'm like, even if I have to sit in like the airport bar to watch the game, I don't want to be on the plane when like some great matchups going on.
I never even thought about it like that. Yeah, that is probably a big part of your Saturday cadence there. And this Saturday, right, the game, the big ones right away, noon.
Yep, right out of the gate.
Oh, great.
So Ohio State, Texas, college game day.
Corso's last one.
Indeed, Arch Manning. Yes, indeed, Lee Corso's last college game day
What
from
a legend,
the
by the way.
horseshoe there. So, yeah, I can't wait. Oh, man, I love it. The anticipation is here for college football. We'll have some college football-related guests throughout the week, do our previews around the state, IU, Notre Dame, Purdue, get you covered for what I think in all three areas, three very different seasons, but I think for their fan bases, just different levels of anticipation and where you're at. Purdue obviously trying to get back on stable ground. Indiana trying to say, hey, no, this is a football program now, which, again, I know is laughable to have thought it a year ago, but Kurt Cignetti's created that. And then Notre Dame, was that a fluky run, or has Marcus Freeman built one of the best teams in college football?
I will say I always get a little jealous of the programs like Ohio State, Texas, Notre Dame, because at least I get jealous of the students there. Because when I was in school, Illinois, even Illinois football now is
so
like
bad
good.
at football.
Yeah, it's like you don't have like that college game day-esque experience, even if you didn't have them like come to your campus or whatever. It still is really cool to be around an environment when you know it's a high-stakes game, your team can legitimately win, it's for all the marbles, that sort of thing. And so to have sort of those stakes on the line, I think for IU in particular, like week to week, I mean, every game is going to be a referendum on your playoff hopes. That's got to be fun if you're, an 18-year-old, 19-year-old student just living that college life.
Riley Leonard, Laquan Treadwell, James. Let's go with those two names. Both of them had plenty of highlights, one huge one to each other in the game on Saturday. And, if you are a Colts fan that hasn't been grinding out the back end of the roster, let the audience know just kind of what life you expect for Riley Leonard here in 2025 and even a guy like Laquan Treadwell.
So for Riley Leonard, I expect him to be QB3, and by that I mean what we saw Saturday was probably the most reps he's going to get for a long time in this offense, Kevin, because, and feel free to chime in, from what I understand, AR will run the scout team throughout most of the practices throughout the season as the backup. So that means Riley Leonard will not get a lot of live bodies to play against throughout the regular season. He will not get a lot of reps in practice, if any at all. I mean, we've heard some of these quarterbacks, even when it comes to Joe Flacco last year, saying as the backup, you barely get any snaps. As a third-string guy, you're not getting any throughout the week. So how does his development plan still go as the Colts want it to? How does he get better? I'm very curious to see how those conversations go, because this is a guy who, again, for Riley Leonard, he's been the man wherever he's played or gone his entire life. And I'll be curious to talk to him maybe about like week 6, week 7, whatever the case may be. Hey, how is it now? What are you doing to get better? What have you learned? Is it more, VR to get reps that way? I've heard coaches mention that. So that's sort of his outlook, in my opinion. Barring injury to one of the other top guys and him becoming QB2, then it changes a lot. And then for Laquan Treadwell, I think it's another year fighting on the practice squad. The Colts will certainly, I think, welcome him back. And then, in a way, still trying to show other teams that, hey, if you need a guy that can go out there and play for you on Sundays, which is ultimately what these guys want, I can do that. Because for him, a lot of those practice squad guys, I've talked to him about this, their Wednesdays are kind of like game day, where you go over the install, a lot of your prep for the week, what you want to do against the other team. That's when they kind of get up and they're like, all right, I get a chance to play more football today. And so those are the two breakdowns I would give you.
Yeah, to me, Leonard is now your new Sam Ehlinger. You know, he kind of in that third emergency quarterback role. Yes, he's now your new developmental project, but, obviously pretty far down the rung. If an injury occurs, I would be curious, would they be comfortable just having him be the game day backup? Or would they go out and look for a veteran at all? With Treadwell, you brought up other teams around the league. I am curious, James, are the Colts fielding any calls for Treadwell today? And again, fielding calls this time of year typically is like, hey, you guys are probably going to cut that dude, right? Well, we think you have a need at this position. We're probably going to cut this guy.
Yeah.
Do you want to swap them?
Yeah.
Hey, we have the Laquan Treadwell at cornerback or linebacker.
Yeah.
Do you want to trade and kind of get around some of the roster cut sort of mechanics? You do see that. We've already seen it here over the weekend. Sam Howell, for example, you saw was traded yesterday, the Vikings quarterback, over to the Eagles. And
that was so the Vikings could sign former Colts quarterback Carson Wentz.
Exactly. So that is something I think to keep an eye on. But, Treadwell, there is a level with now how practice squads are treated. Increased pay, and you can be called up, 3 times a year?
Yes, I believe so. Before they have to put you on the official 53-man roster for the rest of the year.
Life on the practice squad's pretty damn good.
Oh, it's not bad.
I mean, we went over the money last week, and not just the money. Again, now with these call-ups, you're really in great shape. It's not maybe as restrictive as it used to be. It still was obviously pretty good money, but not as restrictive as it used to be. But again, at wideout, James and I are in the same boat. We've got 6. It's Michael Pittman Jr., it's Alec Pierce, it's A.D. Mitchell, Josh Downs, Anthony Gould. One injury question I am curious about is Ashton Doolin. He got hurt, I think, in the Tuesday practice last week, and I don't think we've seen him since. Where is he at health-wise? Because if he is banged up, all of a sudden, Treadwell might be on the 53-man roster.
Yeah, real quick, I know we got to go to break, but here's the breakdown of what you get paid if you're a practice squad guy, according to my guy, Greg Allman, who covers the, I want to say, is it the AFC South? Not AFC South, I'm sorry. He
NFC
covers
South. Right?
NFC South, I'm sorry, for Fox. And he says here, rookies get $13K a week, which translates to $234,000 over the entire season. And then veterans like Laquan Treadwell can make between $17,500 and $22,000 a week, which works out to be between $315,000 and $396,000. So I know I spoke kind of fast there, but nevertheless, there is money available for these guys.
All right, on the other side, Daniel Jones. What was life like with the New York Giants for him? Pat Leonard covered Daniel there with the Giants. He'll join us next to talk about that. Fan Morning Show here, 9 o'clock hour on a Monday.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, we've been talking a lot about Colts roster cuts today. I'm Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, and Mark Dykton alongside. Jeff Rickard will be rejoining us coming up tomorrow. Again, roster cuts 4 o'clock due by tomorrow. The Colts have typically gone all the way up into the deadline, and they had a quarterback deadline, I guess, last week, and we heard that news coming out on Tuesday. It will be Daniel Jones as the starter here in 2025, and now we head to the Payless Liquors hotline to get more into the Daniel Jones background. He is Pat Leonard from the New York Daily News. Talking Ball with Pat Leonard, that is the podcast. You can check him out. We appreciate Pat's time here on this Monday morning. Pat, good morning to you, sir. How are you?
Doing great, gentlemen. How are you guys doing?
We are wonderful. We are hoping to get a little bit more into the Daniel Jones Giants experience. Of course, the Colts saw it firsthand a couple years ago when they got absolutely drubbed there late in the season when the Giants did go on to make the playoffs in that 2022 season. I guess let's start with the good. Shane Steichen oftentimes brings up that 2022 campaign. Daniel Jones was at his best in that year because of what?
I think because Mike Kafka as the play caller, and he utilized Daniel Jones as much as a runner as he did as a passing quarterback. And not that Daniel Jones can't be the pocket passer, but in that construct with Saquon Barkley at running back and Daniel Jones at quarterback, not to mention they had a defense that they knew that they could rely on. And so really what it was about was in Brian Daboll's first year with Wink Martindale at DC, they created a game plan, like a strategy for how they were going to win week in and week out. It wasn't just we're going to roll the football out and play our game. It was we believe we can pressure teams with the defense, and then on offense, rather than putting all on Daniel Jones's shoulders to throw for 350 yards and 2 touchdowns every week, that you could rely on ball control and also kind of rein in some of maybe the potential landmines out there for Daniel in the offense and count on a lower scoring but more controlled way of winning games. So I think it was tied to the strategy of the team's belief in how they were going to win, but it also took advantage of his strengths and steered away from some of his weaknesses.
Again, we have Pat Leonard on the line with us. He covers the Giants for the New York Daily News. Also has the Talking Ball with Pat Leonard. You can check that out wherever you get your podcasts. And Pat, looking back at that 2022 season, they started off 7-2, in the year 9-7-1, really 9-6-1 because the last game didn't necessarily matter for their playoff seeding. But looking at just the raw win-loss total as it, kind of changed throughout the season, did the NFL sort of figure them out at some point when you were covering them?
Yes. I think really what it came down to was roster-wise, personnel-wise, they were not a strong team in many key areas. So they were trying to work around with scheme a lot of, let's say, one-on-one matchups on the field that teams, if they figured out they could exploit, could really start turning the tide on the Giants. And that's kind of what happened in the second half of that year. Daboll, as a head coach, never been a particularly strong game manager. And so getting them into tighter games or putting them on their heels and having to force them to throw late, situations like that, took the Giants out of control of games and put more on them having to more obviously throw in the second half of games. Saquon Barkley banged up for a slight amount of that. But generally, if they were not able to, in the second half of that season, control the pace of the game with the running game, then they found it harder to ultimately come out on top down the stretch of it. But I think it was really more about the strength of the roster. I think they didn't have any other answers other than what they had generated early on.
And then to follow up to that, Pat, I know this is a broad question, but this is the question I get often asked here in Indianapolis is why didn't it work out with Daniel Jones? This is the guy who was a number 6 pick in 2019. Obviously, they paid him with the Giants after that playoff run. They wanted him to be their franchise guy. And you look up now, and he is trying to revive his career, with the Colts.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the reason it didn't work out with Daniel in New York, there's a few reasons. I mean, I would start with the fact that early on under Pat Shurmur in his career, he really was finding the end zone pretty consistently. The issue was he was finding it while taking tons of hits and also turning the ball over in the backfield often, fumbles, things like that. But the main takeaway I think you have to remember from the early part of his career is he was getting, destroyed in the backfield behind a rough offensive line. And so you saw the playmaking ability both with the legs and the arm. But I do believe that then as he ended up with Joe Judge staff and Jason Garrett, offensive coordinator, then the turnover to Brian Daboll, Mike Kafka. For one, he was learning new offenses every other year, at least. And two, by the time he got to a point where he had a little bit more of a reliable scheme and stable offense, he was, in my opinion, shell-shocked and more likely to make a worse decision under duress. And so I felt like that accumulated on him. I think Daniel's game comes down to I think a lot of people look at him and they say he's an intelligent quarterback and sometimes his skills let him down. And I think you need to look at him differently. He is extremely physically gifted. Like there's nothing that he can't do. Even out here watching, Jackson Dart throw now for the Giants versus Daniel Jones's arm in practice. Like Daniel has a much bigger arm. But what happens is when he gets into tight situations because of all those hits he's taken and the decision-making element isn't always there under pressure. So it's more like unleash him when you can. And then when it's in the tight moments, when the field shrinks in the red zone, that's where the coaches need to help him out. And that's where the Giants didn't help him up and out or help him out enough down the stretch.
The New York Daily News, we can find Pat Leonard's work, Talking Ball with Pat Leonard, his podcast. We're chatting about Daniel Jones' time with the Giants. Just a couple more from me, Pat, and I guess one more on the Jones front. Off the field, maybe in front of the camera, I don't know, top 10 pick, and he starts playing poorly, and he gets swallowed up in the New York media market. That's a conversation that I feel like people have asked me about. I find Daniel Jones, he strikes me as someone that seems like a nice guy. Definitely don't think it's the most, it's a pretty boring press conference, frankly, to be honest with you, when he's chatting. Yeah. How would you kind of describe maybe Daniel Jones more in that area away from the exact play on the field?
Yeah, I mean, I had a conversation with him about this one time, one-on-one, and he chalked up his entire demeanor and the way he handles press conferences and just the off-field conversation. And he said, I'm never going to do or say anything that's going to put my teammates or my team in jeopardy or in a negative light. And that's his guiding light, So if he feels like any question or sentiment or storyline or narrative is headed in a direction that isn't positive for the team, he has no interest. He will take, accountability. He won't hesitate to do that. I do think in New York, it took him too long, though, to defend himself, to stand up for himself when he spoke. Not that would have meant anything either way, because ultimately it was about how you play. But I do think, the confidence in himself, he always had it. But I think, he was able to weather it, like thick skin, handle the pressure, that kind of stuff. You're absolutely right. I mean, his press conferences are going to be intentionally boring, but he does have fire on the field. He does have moments going back to when he first came into the league, even of the type of moxie in a huddle that gets people fired up. Like right now, Jackson Dart is carrying that, and the Giants are all rallying around that. But I was here. Daniel was the rookie, and everyone was saying the same exact stuff about him. The veterans were saying, man, I love this kid's energy. I love what he's saying. Game on the line in his first NFL start, and he's telling us we're going to go down and we're going to win it. So what Daniel is he is an extremely tough, team-oriented person. That if you think of him that way every time you listen to him or talk to him, then it'll all make sense.
So one quick follow-up on that, and last one from me, Pat. Talking to him, and I tried to get him to take the bait, and I was like, you New York people, I'm blaming you, Pat, for beating the life out of this guy. I'm joking, of course. But, the thing I asked him when he got here, I said, you came here to win a job, so do you think you can win it? And he never really went there. And even though he's won it now, he still won't go there. But as someone who's obviously covered him a lot longer than I, can you maybe expand a little bit more on just the competitive fire you perhaps have seen from him in certain moments? Because I think that is what I am kind of itching to see. Now he's going to be playing, and if that'll come out on the field, if it'll come out, I don't know, in a post-game speech that we might not see, but just how does that manifest itself for a guy who, I mean, could be, in my opinion, a very nice, librarian or dentist or something. But I'm like, no, you're not that. You're an NFL quarterback.
Right. No, the number one way you'll see it is him trying to run a safety over. I mean, he in his career, it's actually gotten him in trouble. Like many quarterbacks who can run, it's always that decision of when do you slide, when do you step out of bounds, all those things. Daniel is not afraid of contact. He's often looking for it. Now he has worked very hard throughout his career though to adjust to that. But the fire that you're talking about, I think you're going to see it most when he's using his legs. If you go back to last year's win in Seattle for the Giants, and again, they only had 3, so it's not hard to find. But he had a few moments in that game where it was like out of the darkness, here comes, the Daniel Jones with nothing to lose type attitude about him. But it most often, again, even in that game, it showed up when he was taking off and running. And that's, I was eager to have this conversation with you guys because I don't know what type of offense they're installing right now there as you've watched practice every day. But if I'm Steichen, I'm dusting off my Eagles playbook with Jalen Hurts. And I mean, you're probably not running Daniel the same amount you ran Jalen, but I'm making this offense an offense where the quarterback and the running back, Jonathan Taylor, are read optioning teams to death until they bring an extra safety down, and then I'm throwing it. Because that is not only using one of his best skills as a quarterback, it also gets Daniel into the game. That is what gets him into games, is running into and through contact.
Running into and through contact.
I was going to say, around these parts, Pat, those are
you say
scary
that,
words.
Pat, and Anthony Richardson, and all of a sudden people are starting to get a little squeamish here on this Monday morning. I do think the RPO aspect, James, I think you and I have seen it. That can be very effective with him so far. All right, Pat, we appreciate the time. We'll end with this. We had Tyrone Tracy in studio about a month ago. Great story. A local kid here to the Indy area. Obviously had a really nice rookie season. How is year 2 leading into that going for Tyrone Tracy? What do you expect kind of the role here with Brian Dable?
Yeah, he's the lead guy right now. Ball security remains a continued emphasis. He had 1 in a practice and 1 in a preseason game. Both of them, he was just down before the ball came out. That's something that bit him last year, whether it was catching the ball or running. So he has to continue to emphasize that. But, as as a converted receiver, has a ton of athleticism, versatility. They have Cam Scattaboo now that they drafted in addition to Devin Singletary in the backfield. But, Scattaboo will eat into Tracy's, touches and his role there, particularly maybe in short yardage situations. He's even a good receiver. But I think the way you look at it is in the NFL now, most teams can't get away with just one guy. And, they're expecting exciting things from Tracy this year.
New York Daily News, and again, it is Talking Ball with Pat Leonard. That is the podcast there. Pat Leonard with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Pat, thank you. Times a million. We appreciate it. I know talking about Daniel Jones might not be what you want to be doing right now. You're busy with your own beat, but we greatly appreciate it.
No, Daniel's the man. I hope he succeeds. I think people are underselling the impact he's going to have on the team.
Thank you, Pat Leonard, right there on the Payless Liquors Hotline. To echo that, this from Brandon James. This interview has me more fired up for Danny Dimes. Can Shane unleash it and call a game to his strengths?
That is the question. And to kind of piggyback off of what Pat Leonard said and even what you said last week, Kevin, the play calling will be essential and vital, like it always is with quarterbacks. But I think in this case in particular, there are obvious things that Daniel Jones might have issues with, some of that being decision-making. He's been a guy who's had a lot of turnovers throughout his career. I believe it's 73 turnovers in 70 games for his career. Also, I want to say it's 85 total touchdowns in 70 games. And so there is not a huge gap between touchdowns and turnovers for him. However, that season that he did help the team get to the playoffs with the New York Giants, we saw a lot of decision-making be sort of decided for him with the play calls and kind of streamlining some things, making it simple for him, using him as a runner. And so, Kevin, I go back to what you said last week of this is as much a bet on Daniel Jones as is on Shane Steichen betting on himself and his play calling and believing that I can help this guy as long as he's not erratic like Anthony Richardson showed himself to be. I can bet on myself to call plays for this guy, put him in positions to win. We can go out there. And again, the belief all along internally with the Colts over the last couple of years has been we just get adequate QB play, not great, just average, maybe slightly above average QB play. We can be a playoff team.
I'll never forget the combine this past year, James, and you see this occasionally in the NFL with young first-time head coaches. They will take on all the responsibility and then realize, oh boy, it's a little overwhelming. Let me delegate. Nick Sirianni being a poster child of it. Nick Sirianni initially was the play caller with the Philadelphia Eagles, and then he passed that off to Shane Steichen, ironically enough. And so I asked Shane at the combine, I go, again, for young first-time head coaches, and I think admittedly you saw last season, Shane had some issues with some of the head coaching responsibilities within that locker room and how, the standard was being achieved to. So I asked Shane, hey, has there been any thought about you giving up play calling duties? And that man looked at me like I was an absolute idiot for asking that question. I bring that up to say if Shane Steichen's cocky about anything, it's his play calling.
Yeah.
And so he is going, yes, he believes in it. He obviously believes in the skill group around him. I think we've had this conversation before. In the Ballard era, you could make the argument this might be the best skill group he's had. When you think about Taylor, you think about Tyler Warren, you think about the depth at wideout, this is a very good skill group when you compare it to other years. They're betting on all of that. Of course, betting on the offensive line to still stay at the level, which that one might be more of a question mark here. But, yeah, I think you can, I think we hit on this last week. My win total is probably going to be right around 8 or 9 when we get to that point this time next week. I think the Daniel Jones thing can stay afloat. The thing is, it creates a defined ceiling. And is that what you want from your franchise quarterback? That's obviously a bigger conversation for a bigger day. All right, Nate Atkins and 10, Mark Dykton. Let's check it down.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
James Boyd, the hardest position that you had to cut down was what as we await the 4 o'clock deadline for tomorrow? 90 to 53 around the NFL roster cuts.
Ooh, I want to say it might be offensive line or cornerback. Cornerback, I could go either way. Well, I'll say this. The lines in general, the trenches are always kind of tough for me. And then cornerback, because even though I picked 7 to make the roster, which 7? Will it be 7? Will it be 6? I was going back and forth a lot.
Yeah, trenches are always hard because I know Chris Ballard wants to keep more than I do.
I know. And whenever I'm like, am I just being a little bit too low right here? Because I know this guy. I know him well. So, yeah. Ballard
wants to keep 10 on both lines. And I'm like, oh, boy.
I think I had 10. 9 on both lines.
You got so many inactive then on game day. So, again, we'll continue to dive deeper into roster cuts here the rest of this show and also coming up tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, the Fever back in action at home. It is the Seattle Storm. And I don't think it's hyperbole at all to call this the biggest week in the Fever's season here. They lose yesterday in Minnesota. No real shock there. Nafisa Collier returned and looked like the MVP in this league. The Fever really lost that game after the first quarter. Very entertaining opening quarter, but the Lynx asserted their dominance there in the second. James, right now the Fever 8th in the standings. They will face 6, 7, and 9 in the standings all this week. That is the Seattle Storm, the Golden State Valkyries, and the LA Sparks. The latter two start their final big road trip of the year. Just what an absolutely massive week to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
For the Fever, and what is a very jumbled 6, 7, 8, 9, top 8 make the playoffs.
Yeah, part of me is like, man, what a tough position to be in for the Fever. But at the same time, if you're a competitor, which I know all of them are on that team, for Kelsey Mitchell and others, it's almost like you have to get into that playoff mode already. Like, this is do or die. And I do trust Kelsey Mitchell to obviously do her thing. It's just, can you get enough of the teammates around her, and really defensively as well? Can you do enough defensively to give yourself a chance to get into the playoffs, to get to the dance?
The broom's out for the Cubs. It's actually a legit sweep, not one of those two gamers Mark Dykton tried to run around the circle naked for earlier this year. They sweep the Angels, and they are 5 back in the NL Central. Do we believe that Central is up for grabs, or is this, hey, just strengthen your wild card position?
Talk to me after this next series against the Giants. If they can take 2 out of 3 against the Giants and the Brewers continue to kind of stumble a little bit, I mean, if we get down to 3 games, it's a whole new ball game now. So talk to me on Thursday.
Is there another series with the Brewers?
No, that was it.
They
had the 5-game stretch at Wrigley was it. So this is all, you need some things to fall your way at this point.
Reds desperately needed one yesterday. They got it. They're 1.5 back in the wild card as they continue to play out west. What a race it was for Christian Rasmussen of Ed Carpenter Racing yesterday on these very airwaves. The IndyCar season was up in Milwaukee on that oval, and it was Rasmussen passing Alex Palou with about 15 to go on the outside. One of honestly the highlights of the year. I thought for sure they were going to touch, and it wasn't going to end well for one, if not both of them. But what a move it was as he gets his first career win. First win for Ed Carpenter Racing in 4 years there. And I did see a report earlier today from Nathan Brown, does a great job covering the Star, or covering IndyCar for the Star, mentioning that the F1 team of Red Bull has some interest in Alex Palou. So welcome to that offseason storyline for IndyCar. They are in Nashville to close out their season coming up this weekend. James Boyd, week 1 of the high school football. You were over on the east side, correct?
Yes. Shout out to, I believe, Juju Brent's alma mater there at Warren Central. They lost to Center Grove 24-6, but I think that game was a little bit closer than the score would predict. It got a little bit lopsided late, but it was just good to be around that environment. But also, shout out to the Warren Central band. I believe they've won some state titles or something recently. Or
I love me a good band.
They were fantastic. I mean, it was phenomenal. I was like, this is what I miss about some of the, NFL experiences that I've had, and, even some of the college experiences. You don't get like the high school band. You could tell they put a lot of work into their routine. And halftime, I was loving it. I feel like a proud parent, even though I am not one.
I love
James Wood had the iPad out. He was taking recordings.
Yeah, I told you I was looking to see which parents. And yes, I saw many parents who were criticizing the coach, criticizing the refs, and had the iPad out for all their kids' highlights. And so it was everything that I loved and missed about covering high school sports. And honestly, Kevin, I thought to myself real quick, it's like, man, it's been 7 years since I covered my first high school game in this state. And so full circle moment for your boy, and I was just grateful to be there.
Welcome back, high school sports, yelling at the refs and the coaches there. Wouldn't have it any other way. Colin Coffer, shout out to North Central, ending that 32-game losing streak. They beat Brebeuf there in week 1. New coach there. I've heard great things about him. So shout out to the Panthers. Tommy Fleetwood gets it done on the PGA Tour, their tour championship. He wins for the first time in his very impressive PGA Tour career. Easily the label of best player to never win, now removed from him. That was a pretty cool scene yesterday in Atlanta. And Carson Wentz back in the NFL, the backup to J.J. McCarthy with the Minnesota Vikings. So the man that calls Zionsville home, he now will call Minneapolis home for a brief period here with Ryan Kelly and Will Fries as he joins the Vikings. All right, speaking of people on the move, I don't know if he's ready to share just yet. He is Nate Atkins from the Indianapolis Star. He covers the Colts and will offer his thoughts on the team that he will no longer cover here coming up on the other side. Nate Atkins from the Indy Star next.
Previously on the Fan Morning Show.
I heard that little bit of banter about Notre Dame making the national title game, and you're right. It's not everyone makes it there. Some teams win it when they do.
Gosh. Boom. I could feel the knife already in there. I was wondering when he was going to twist it, though.
You are roasted, toasted, and burnt to a crisp.
You know, it was about, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. I'm standing there at Grand Park and watching Colts practice next to our next guest, Nate Atkins from the Indianapolis Star, and he informs me of he will be moving on from the Colts beat. I'll let Nate share whenever he feels the need to what exactly he will be doing next. But inside, I thought back to that Mark Dykton clip that was just played there from Nate Atkins appearing on the show, and I thought, you know what, Nate? I'm not going to miss you, man.
Do you smell that, Mark, at all? You know, I think I smell a little beef this morning.
And do you notice
you're drinking this morning?
You notice every time it gets brought up in the media room, there he is over there. I mean, him and I cannot be further in the room. He's on the far left, I'm on the far right, and he just throws another jab. He just a subtle jab in there. So, Nate, I'm supposed to say nice things, but I won't miss you.
I know. That's what you said. It was like the last time we were in that media room, you just said, when are you leaving again? And I was like, oh, dang it. Here we go again.
In all seriousness, congrats. I guess I will leave it open to you to share anything if you want to, or I know some people have asked, hey, what's Nate going to be doing? But it sounds like that'll be announced here soon. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's going to be announced by the new place I'm going to, so just got to be a little bit patient with it. But, my last day was supposed to be Saturday's preseason game, but the way this job goes, you still got some writing to do and things linger. So that's why I'm on here talking, and then I'll be writing a final story, and then I'll be moving later this week. But staying in the same kind of realm, I'll be doing something similar, just somewhere else. So, but yeah, it'll be, I'll miss you guys and miss Indy and miss the Colts beat, but on a different adventure, I guess.
I will say, I believe Nate will have a banger story that I kind of know a little bit about, not obviously a whole lot about because he's the writer, but stay tuned for that. But for the here and now, Nate, we did wrap up the preseason. We do know for week 1, the starting quarterback will be Daniel Jones. And I will start with this. How can this work? I think we have all sort of given our opinion on the decision, right? And why, at least in my eyes, I would have chose Anthony Richardson, or why Shane Steichen believes Anthony Richardson isn't ready yet. But for the sake of this conversation, Daniel Jones is the guy. They're rolling with him. So in your mind, what things can they do to help him get back to that level he played at, which ultimately helped the Giants get to the playoffs, albeit 3 years ago?
It's kind of interesting the setup that they have right now when they relate it back to that 2022 Giants season, because that was the year that Saquon Barkley went crazy, and it just complemented really well and let Daniel Jones play safe and efficient. He had the lowest interception percentage in the league. So he only threw 15 touchdown passes, but he only had 5 interceptions and ran really well in addition to Saquon Barkley. So they've got that with Jonathan Taylor. It's also interesting that they have the Giants assistant offensive line coach at the time and the Giants running backs coach at the time. So they are really trying to recreate a lot of what that offense was while banking on an idea of their offensive line being stronger and having a lot better weapons for him to throw to. He didn't really have that at that time. He didn't really have it outside of Malik Neighbors for just like 10 games last season. So they're hoping that if they can get him in a passing game that can distribute the ball to players in space, that Shane Steichen can scheme up, whether it's man or zone coverage, and bank on yak plays, that they can do that with Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Tyler Ward, and A.D. Mitchell. So they're really banking on everybody else being the stars around the quarterback. That's what's flipped so much since they drafted Anthony Richardson. He was supposed to eventually become that guy who elevates everything around him. And part of it, I think, is that they believe the receiving core is a lot better than it was when they drafted Anthony in 2023. And part of it is just that they've really hammered in on or zoned in on the sort of operational consistency type stuff, which, to be honest with you, I don't know that Daniel Jones is what I would call consistent. I do think he is a guy that is a little bit more, he's more durable than Anthony, and he's more accurate on the short-range passes, and he is more operational. And so they're going to bank on scheme and surrounding talent to elevate him. And they've got to stay healthy, though, because I don't think this model is going to work if Jonathan Taylor goes down. And you could say the same thing for a couple of these skill players and offensive linemen. So if everything kind of goes the way they want it to with the offense around Daniel Jones, he can kind of be that guy who distributes, and I think that's what they're banking on.
And that's Nate Atkins of Indianapolis Star on the Colts beat for not much longer, but he's with us here on this Monday morning. Nate, I thought you did an excellent piece last week, kind of 10 thoughts on the starting of Daniel Jones and maybe the missteps the Colts took with Anthony Richardson. Was there a point in there that you found particularly interesting as, you went way back, all the way to that 2023 draft process, which I thought was a nice in-depth look at the entire, what I've labeled kind of an organizational failure?
Yeah, what I do is I just go back to that spring and how pretty much they spent every waking hour in the spring of 2023 to figure out what quarterback they were going to take, and that drove the hire of Shane Steichen. And all the guys that they interviewed, had these thoughts and ideas prepared about the quarterbacks in that draft and what they were looking for. And if you go back to what they said almost all the way, pretty much up until the combine, Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen both talked about how much they liked traits such as accuracy and leadership and the obsession of the position. And there ultimately was one player I think they were really talking about that ended up in that draft, which was C.J. Stroud. And the problem, though, is they got to the combine where Anthony Richardson gets out there and he puts on the greatest show that the league has ever seen at the quarterback position. And they're combining that with these reports from Morocco Brown down at the Florida practices about this guy's making some of the throws and plays on the run that he's never even seen. He ended up having a quote later on where he said that Anthony Richardson's floor is higher than most quarterback ceiling. And so they just got really wrapped up in the hype of this quarterback. It was very exciting at the time. And the whole league was trying to understand quite what this guy can be when he hasn't started very much and he had a completion percentage low, but the talent was so outrageous. And I think they banked on the idea that Shane Steichen could work with a lot of different quarterbacks, whether that was Jalen Hurts as a mobile quarterback or whether that was Phillip Rivers as the pocket quarterback. But that was only true stylistically, I think, in terms of are they runners, are they throwers, are they deep ball, are they short range. What he had never really done is develop a kid who has not played before and didn't have this kind of baseline of knowledge and wasn't already obsessive at the position. He had something very different in Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert, who played so much in college. And so that's what I think stood out to me, is just that they abandoned what they were looking for in a quarterback for just about a 1 month stretch, or I guess 2 month stretch between the combine and draft day. But also they let a draft board spit out a quarterback to them because they didn't want to trade up. So by the time they had the number 4 pick, they definitely liked Anthony Richardson more than Will Levis. But it wasn't an Anthony Richardson versus C.J. Stroud debate in their eyes because they weren't going to trade up to make that call. They couldn't find the conviction, and they were in love with Anthony enough to do it. So there's a lot to be excited for with Anthony Richardson, but I don't think it fit the sort of conviction and plan you need to make these kind of quarterbacks work.
So to pivot away from the quarterback conversation briefly, Nate, we know that tomorrow is cut down day. 53-man roster. I do not believe you will be on it since you're leaving us. However, when you look at some of these position battles, what group do you think might have like the closest call, or is there somebody in mind that you think should make the team, might not make the team? Just who are some bubble guys that stand out to you?
Yeah, well, I'll say the first cut's already in because that's me. But going on to actual guys on the team that won't be here. I think injuries took out a lot of the surprises as far as like guys they're actually going to cut. Just losing Hunter Waller and Justin Wally, and if they end up moving a couple other guys to injured reserve, like I think they're considering with Jalen Jones and Jalen Carlisle are two guys that could be options for that. I don't think they're going to end up cutting guys that you otherwise would be that surprised about, but it does mean they're going to keep a few guys that might not have otherwise made it. I think Jonathan Edwards, the undrafted cornerback, is one of those that's going to make it, partly because they just had so many injuries there, but they really like what they've seen out of him from like a recovery speed standpoint. It's similar to when Dallas Flowers was that undrafted player, and he just had all this athleticism, and they wanted to tap into that and see what they could do with it. It fits well, better in this system than the last, with Lou Anarumo playing a lot of man coverage, and he has not, in their eyes, looked scared or panicked out there. So he has a lot to work on, of course, but he seems to have enough of the instincts and feel and confidence for the position with the recovery speed. I think that's going to be a guy that's going to surprise a few people. And then I think Daniel Scott sort of sealed his entrance to the 53-man roster with the pick six, and just having a healthy camp for the first time after he's missed 2 seasons. Like, the front office has always really loved Daniel Scott. They have an opening at backup strong safety after Hunter Waller's injury, and they like what he does on special teams. So those are a couple of guys that I think coming into camp people weren't really talking about or thinking about that I think are going to make this team.
Well, Nate, as much as it pains me to say it, it is a sincere, we will miss you. I guess maybe, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, maybe an early congrats, but I won't miss the Ohio State banter by any means. But no, in all seriousness, loved just watching you work. Great written work, and I thought very thorough. And just the questions you asked, and always found myself, man, that's a great question. I really feel like that's going to lead to an awesome answer. So we're going to miss you here, man.
Before we sign off, Nate, do you have a favorite story, favorite game you cover, favorite moment? Give us some of your favorites on the way out.
Okay. Well, yeah, I definitely appreciate working with both of you guys who also grind like none other to do it on the radio and then show up every day. I just get to do one of those, so it's a little easier to work hard at my lane. But yeah, there's so many memories in just 3.5 seasons, and when I go back to, we could focus on some of the craziest stories that'll ever happen. I've never heard of contract dispute the way that Jonathan Taylor had it, with the tweets being traded back and forth, and Jim Irsay coming off a luxury bus for a post-game press conference of sorts. The Jeff Saturday introduction and that whole ride was crazy. But to me, on the positive end, I just think of a couple performances I've never seen before. That was Jonathan Taylor against the Bills in 2021 when he ran for 4 touchdowns and caught one against the number 1 defense. Just a moment where everyone knew in the stadium who's getting the ball, and absolutely nobody could do anything about it. And then Matt Gay in 2023 in Baltimore, it's shocking to think that they took down Lamar Jackson on the road with Gardner Minshew and Zach Moss as their backfield, and they did it because they had a kicker who hit 4 50-plus yard field goals, including a game winner, and actually outdid Justin Tucker in his building. So those 2 performances kind of stand out to me as rocky as this has been and crazy as it has been, and maybe not high-end ceiling for the most part. There's 2 performances that I would put up there with any I've seen in my career.
Yeah, I would certainly echo all of that. Well, Nate, we're going to miss you, brother. Thank you for making time for us here, and we will certainly chat with you down the road.
Yep. Thanks as always, guys.
Nate Atkins, good human right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. We'll do it one final time here. This is the Fan Morning Show on a Monday.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, one final time here, Fan Morning Show on a Monday. Thank you for spending the start of your week with us. Jeff should be back tomorrow. Again, a lot of roster cut chatter coming up tomorrow, due by 4 o'clock, 90 to 53, Tuesday afternoon. Do want to make sure, when we do the Monday show, your news cycle kind of always goes back a little bit to Friday, and when our show ends at 10 a.m., oftentimes stuff can, break on that Friday, and you kind of forget about it. So thank you to Todd Meyer, our executive producer, for mentioning this, of the passing of Forrest Lucas, which we saw over the weekend. Obviously, the namesake on that building that is Lucas Oil Stadium, and just an unbelievable philanthropic side. Honestly, very similar to Jim Irsay in what he has meant to the state, and for people that have been on property up there to that Lucas Oil Estate. Tons of events that have been up there. Again, many of them from a philanthropic side. He grew up in Southern Indiana, and not only did a ton in the racing world, but again, obviously on the side of Lucas Oil Stadium. And I'm pretty sure, James, that is going to be the Pacers jersey patch for this year. I'm pretty sure Lucas Oil and their products.
That is, yes.
That's going to be on their jersey patch. So again, just a person that obviously has done a lot for the sports community in our state, but just strictly philanthropic side as well. So rest in peace to him, and to Katie and his entire family. Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, there's a story in the Indy Star titled "Forrest Lucas, the unlikely self-made multimillionaire and namesake of Colts Stadium, dies." And so if you want to hear something about how he kind of grew up and the things that he overcame, because this is a guy who grew up in poverty early on in his life and then turned himself into a self-made, very fortunate, well-off dude worth $500 million. And obviously he means a lot to this state. So I would encourage you to read that story in Indy Star.
So Lucas Oil was built, what was the first year? 08, 07? That sound right?
I'm looking
Colts
right
Bears
now.
First game, Mark, if I remember
Matt
correctly.
Forte ran wild that night.
So
True Mark fashion there.
I do remember that.
So 20 years after that would be coming up, right? It was a 20-year.
20 years old. Good Lord.
Yeah, 20-year
Jeez.
Naming rights to the side of the stadium there. So I guess that's coming up, right? I mean, we're looking at 2027, 2028, something like that. So, yeah, that is crazy, Mark, when you say that out loud. 20 years for Lucas Oil.
Well, it's one of those things where people say 07, 08. You're like, oh, that was 10 years ago. Like, oh, actually, it was almost 20. I'm like, good God.
I know. Hell, I graduated
old.
high school in 08, and I'm like, boy, I could probably use another hair transplant.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking
you
of
will
high school,
after Notre Dame loses it.
Speaking of high school,
wait, was that needed? Oh, time out, James. Was that needed at all? That was a little drive-by by Mark Dykton.
I was about to say, dang, I thought I was supposed to be the Scrooge this morning,
gosh.
Mr. Mark Dykton.
I thought Nate Atkins he already hung up on.
I just thought we're
What
making
has Notre
jokes.
Dame done to you?
We're all friends here. We're just making jokes. We're just having fun.
No
Bumping uglies
I will
here.
say, Kevin,
no laughing manner when it comes to Notre Dame.
the Tito's vodka hat does make everything you say
know.
a bit funnier
It's
this
hard
morning.
to take you seriously.
It's my
so.
most comfortable hat, so that's why I wore it here on this
Yeah, I'm
Monday
about to
morning.
say, people will tell me all the time, liquor makes you a little more comfortable. Could have had a little this morning if you're feeling a little chilly walking outside.
Sorry to interrupt. You had a high school
Yes,
thought?
speaking of high school and our throwback days, we got a text from Jordan through the text line. He says, thanks for shouting out the Warren Central Band. My daughter is in it. The practices and structures are intense. Jordan, I could tell, but also could tell the kids had a great time out there. So shout out to your daughter and all of her friends and what they were able to do, because that is what makes me love high school athletics. Not just the athletes, but everything else around there. Like I said, the crazy parents, the great bands, the concession stands, all of the above. It was really cool. And also, Warren Central apparently had like a yeehaw, like kind of cowboy type of theme for their student section. And one of their alums, I'm blanking on the name, I'm so sorry, but they brought live horses to the game.
Whoa.
So that was really cool too as well.
Through the gates?
Yeah, they had some live horses
Let's
there.
go.
As I was walking in, I'm looking over, like, oh, there's a couple of horses just around, and all the kids had on cowboy hats, and all the girls had on their boots and things like that, and the boys as well. So it was a really cool high school night, and honestly, it brings back a lot of good memories.
Boy, and this week looks awesome. I mean, for all fall sports, just looks great week from a weather standpoint, and hopefully Friday will be that. And even if you're tailgating in Bloomington or West Lafayette on Saturday, looks to be outstanding. I do. I mean, there's just something, I don't know, just the pageantry, the band atmosphere. I do love that about high school and college sports. You just don't get that in pro sports. Obviously, pro sports are different and it's great, but I don't know. I'm such a sucker for like the college. I mean, clearly, the college tradition atmosphere, and even like Friday nights. You hear the band playing, you get the cheerleaders making the big signs. I love it.
Yeah, I think Friday we're gonna have to pump some like college football like stadium jams for Friday. Get this pump for
Ooh, I love
Saturday.
that. Just a straight jock jams re-entry.
Yeah.
And
Zombie Nation, Jump Around, Mr. Brightside.
Yeah, I love it. Your Brownsburg Bulldogs against my Irish coming up.
Yeah, we might have to make a friendly wager, not of the Mondo kind, but maybe, something else. But yeah.
Well, we have Operation Football every Friday these days now with Dominic Miranda of WTHR. So if you want to get a little bit of that high school flavor, 7:30 a.m. every Friday.
We'll tease up on the podcast again. We just caught up in the 9 o'clock hour, if you missed it right at the start, with Pat Leonard, who covered Daniel Jones with the Giants for whatever it was, 6 total years, I guess, 5.5 years. Daniel Jones spent out there, and I would say several people are pretty optimistic after listening to that conversation. And, again, I think there are 2 levels to the Daniel Jones story that we'll continue to get into before we get to a week from Sunday and the Colts are playing football. I think this can be a season that has sniffing around a playoff spot, but also is that the guy.
Yeah.
The guy, all caps, bold.
Ooh, yeah.
Here's 3 years and $60 million. Here's no draft pick at quarterback in 2026. Here's no draft pick at quarterback.
There's a lot of implications.
Those are 2 very different questions in my mind with that. So we'll continue to dive deeper into that throughout. Probably quiet night, right? Quiet night sports-wise. I think we started to transition. I know U.S. Open tennis. Some people are into that throughout the week. But baseball takes center stage. We'll get to a little college football here. And, again, roster cuts coming tomorrow due by 4 Eastern. So thank you to Pat Leonard of the New York Daily News. Thank you to Nate Atkins from the Indianapolis Star, Mark Dykton, James Boyd, and Kevin Bowen. Jeff Rickard should be back tomorrow, so our lineup today has got you covered. It'll be Jake and Eddie from noon to 3, James and John coming from 3 to 6. We'll talk to you tomorrow right here on The Fan.